special meeting of the City Council to order. As this is a called meeting, we'll jump straight to the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentations to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. Citizens Forum is now open. Anyone wishing to address the council, please step up. You'll give us your name and address. You'll have 2 minutes. Seeing no one, I will now close the Citizens Forum, which brings us to the purpose of this meeting: discuss and provide direction on the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for the City of Paris. Mr. Path.
Good evening, City Council. I've been looking forward to this night here to get to have a workshop with you all to go over the budget. It was 1 week ago that we did a quick presentation over it, and so I think you've had a chance to kind of go over it some more. And I'm sorry. So I'm going to do a lot of talking tonight, and so I don't want to start yawning and lose my breath too much. But yes, I just want to emphasize this is of course your time to ask questions. You control the meeting. I do have some slides here that could help guide it if that's how you wish we proceed here. But this budget workshop is designed to give you a chance to Q&A, ask us what's in this budget, why this, why that, did you consider this, did you consider that. I have asked all my supervisors, superintendents, and departments to be here, and so I'd like to thank you all for coming here to assist me with this. You all know the budgets better than I do because you all live that stuff. So thank you all for being here to help with this. So we have department head superintendents here in case you have fine-tuned questions that are beyond me. They're here to help answer those here as well. So, and thank you for those who have come to listen to the budget workshop. And so we do appreciate citizens coming to listen and learn and go from there. So one thing I would ask, as we go through the process here, obviously, if the council would like to see changes this way or that way, please, what I would ask the city manager is that the council come to a consensus. And I know sometimes it can be that one person may want this, another person says, no, I don't want that. And so I would ask that maybe a consensus come from that. That way I have some good direction as to what you want me to do. Or even if one person wants something or does not want something, it'd help if I know how the body believes. Because ultimately the council as a body will guide the budget here. So if you could help me, please, if you have items that you want to see changed or not, either just consensus, or if we get to the point where we have to have a motion, if we get to that point, we can do that. That would help me as city manager kind of know where to go with things as well. So that would help out. What I have tonight, I have a couple slides that kind of look over, again, overall budget again. I've kind of reused some information from the last week here just to kind of help kind of guide us into tonight's discussion. And then what I've got after that is by department by department here, I have a quick overview. I've pulled all the operational departments here. This is why our staff is here today. And it's gone through budget by budget and give you just a very high overview about what was last year, what was this year, what's the net difference, why is there a net difference, and then do some other highlights about what's in that budget here. Now, to go into the weeds of every line item, I don't know if we have time for that. I've seen those budgets. I've done those in my last community. We'll be here for days, and I know that I've lived that. And so we can definitely dive into weeds here, but I would encourage you to maybe pace yourself. If we need to do another one, we can try to schedule another meeting here as well to do that. But otherwise, I'll just kind of hit some highlights, and then if you have questions, please stop me. This is your meeting. Tell me, okay, Grayson, time out. I want to ask about this and that, and we will stop and we will cover those items here. So if the council's okay, I'll get started here. We are going to cover every department here, so I hope we'll cover most every area you want to talk about. If not, again, this is your time, and we will do the best we can to get that done. So to start, I just want to again emphasize our financial policy that I drafted here for this. Just to read it again. The overall financial policy of the City of Paris, as shown through its proposed fiscal year 2021 budget, is to serve the public with professionalism, civility, honesty, and integrity, and to provide a safe and prosperous community by being responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and to provide quality, efficient, and effective services that facilitate and enhance the quality of life, recreational enjoyment, economic opportunity, responsible planning, improvement of infrastructure, and public safety for all. One long sentence there. But I think that embodies what we are after as a city, what I've always, as a manager, what I've always tried to pursue. Again, I always push my staff, professionalism, civility, honesty, integrity. We are stewards of the taxpayer and ratepayer dollar. We need to always remember that. As council, as staff, we have to remember that this money, where it came from and what it should be used for and how we should use it, and that's how I believe we are acting as a city here. I've not seen any instance that I've seen of intentional waste. I've not seen that at all, so I believe we are doing the best we can to use the money wisely. But there's always room for improvement, but that's what we will continue to do on an ongoing basis, is to improve. Just to hit the budget priorities that I mentioned here, I threw all 6 in here real quick. Again, my top priority as I proposed to the council was employee pay. Again, the staff here, they're our greatest asset. They're the ones that get the job done. They're the ones that help me do my job for you and that help serve the citizens to meet their needs, get the job done. And so looking at that when I came here, I realized that we are behind in pay. And so I would like to propose that we do a 2% COLA, as well as do a comparable pay study to go towards trying to examine where do we need to be at as pay, what is fair to both to the taxpayer, what is fair to the employee, and go from there. So I had that as one of my top priority in this budget here. Replacing outdated equipment through financing and also purchasing outright. We will touch more on those as we go into the departments here. I've outlined, I believe, all the main purchases here, so we'll touch on those tonight. New position, city planner and code enforcement officer. We have that in there. Realignment of the line item budgets. We have, we made over 400 plus line item adjustments this year. Again, just to kind of go with what that is again, I looked at the last 5 years of budgets, line by line, all the lines, and I try to identify places to where perhaps in time we have maybe just lax a little bit, and so in how we budget things. Again, I don't think there's any ill intent by any means. I just think sometimes budgets, you have to have a certain skill set, and I believe I have that skill set, and so that's one thing that God's given me. I have very few skills in my life. That's one of the ones I think I have a good skill at, and so is to look at numbers and budgets. And so we went through that with the staff, myself. We went through line by line, found places to where that didn't quite line up with history, captured that, and put it towards other purposes, hence the COLA, hence the equipment, hence other improvements and services that we have in this budget here. And also likewise, sometimes in some cases we were under budgeted. Historically, we're spending up here to provide service, but we're budgeting down here. That's not an appropriate budget either. And so we have to, in order to get a true appropriate budget, we have to look at all the ups and downs. That way we have a correct budget that means something to the citizens. So we did that process here. Again, we made over 400 line items, which produced a ton of savings that we can then reallocate to more services that we can provide to our citizens. Again, it was a much more efficient budget as I see it. Now, there's always more room to grow. We will keep doing that as years go on. Also, trying to maintain operational services. I did not go into this budget with the idea of trying to cut services. I don't know the city well enough yet. I don't know what your goals are yet well enough. And so I did not go into this looking at we're going to cut this, cut that. I tried to, we're going to try to maintain services, if not improve services. And how can we do that? If we need to replace some equipment, if we need to have another staff person to spread the load out or address an area that we're not meeting, or if we can't find the staff or our pay's falling behind. I did all those areas here. What can we do to provide better services to our citizens and our ratepayers? And lastly, of course, the Texas Property Tax Reform and Transparency Act of 2019, I say SB2 is how I try to say that. This budget here is in line with that, trying to keep us within that voter approval rate for the property tax rate and not going beyond that. Again, We do have the ability to go beyond that through our de minimis rate that has been given to us by the legislature. The budget here does not call for that. If you do so wish to add some things to the budget, keep what you have, add what you want, or even just take away but add more that goes beyond what I budgeted here, we do have the ability to go at least another penny or so in property tax if you so wish. I'm not recommending that given what the budgets I balanced here tonight, but that is obviously an option available to you as well. And I thank Gene for that. He couldn't be here tonight with us, but I thank Gene for the work he's done to help me through that process. It's a very complicated form, 7 pages. We went through it probably 10 times. It's not easy to figure out. Gene and I think we know numbers pretty well. It's got some work to be done on it next year. I think the state needs to re-examine that form a little bit, but we got through it and we feel good about it, so where we're at. Again, we have 44 separate funds. Vast majority of these are special purpose funds. They are earmarked for very unique purposes, things that you can't, these are type of funds that you can't just grab and spend some on whatever you want to. They come with strings, a lot of federal funds, a lot of certain kinds of donations and grants. These are funds that came into us with a specific purpose, and so those ones have their own set-aside purposes. Then we have our bonded indebtedness funds as well, ones we're trying to pay back our debt for projects. So our 3 operational funds is 01, General Fund, 10, which is Water and Sewer Fund, and then 45, which is Sanitation and Landfill Fund. Those are the 3 that as you see here, almost a $41 million budget. The overall budget is about $50 million, so you can see those 3 funds make up 4/5 of the budget. That's our operational source. That's where we operate daily out of to do the jobs that the citizens ask us to do. And so as you see in my budget, I balanced all 3 of them. I'm not sure if that's happened in the past. It didn't happen last year that I could see, but all 3 are balanced to where new revenue equals expenditure. Which is why I've always tried to pursue a balanced budget. We do have a little bit of a contingency, $50,000, and I'm gonna address that $600,000 in a little bit here. I think I figured that out for you, and so but we have a $50,000 contingency in there, just in case. And but again, budgets, they are guesses, and so we do always hope. We try to budget conservatively on revenue, and I don't like to use the word liberally in expenditure, but I try to just you want to budget yourself so tight to where you're going to overshoot that. You want to just budget about right to where you come in just under that and not way beneath, but also definitely not over. That's what we try to do. It's always a moving target. Because this is August 2020. We're talking about October 1st, 2020, all the way to September of 2021. So it's a long time to try to guess what we're going to be doing 12 months from now. You never quite know. Hence COVID. You never know what's going to get thrown at you, and it's hard to budget for everything. So looking at the general fund revenue first, we'll touch on water and sewer a little later tonight, and then we'll also touch on landfill later on after that. But general fund revenue first. In 1920, we budgeted $23,677,344. This year, my proposed budget is $24,443,660, an increase of $766. Now, the primary reasons behind that. Getting to Councilmember Pilgrim's question here, what we did last year, again, I wasn't here, so I'm having to speculate here, but what I see in the budget is last year we used $650,000 out of the reserve to help lower property taxes. And so I know that was a request that we tried to lower the tax rate last year because of the evaluation. And so with a mixture of some cutting, we also went in and we also took $650 out of the reserve to balance the budget. In that situation, its expenditure equals revenue plus reserve. You can do that once in a while, but you can't do that forever, unfortunately, because eventually you run out of reserve. And so last year we used $650 there, so that's a big reason why you saw that number there was that $650 was reserve money being used to balance the budget. I did not budget for that this year. Again, I have new revenue equals new expenditure. That's why it looks like we're increasing by $766,000. We are, but because we took $650 out of the reserve to do that last year. And we can take more money out of the reserve if you so wish. I don't recommend that consistently. That's not a healthy approach to do things. In fact, in Nebraska, one of my peer communities in Nebraska, I won't mention the name of it, they were doing it, I don't know, I think they are doing it without knowing it. And so for years and years and years, they were looking at their audit reserves. They looked at the audit, and you have to know how to read an audit. Audit, it gives you one big fat number at the bottom of the audit. You have to know that in that audit are lots of funds, just like we have. Those funds have restricted uses. And so they thought, oh, I've got $20 million to work with. We need to lower our taxes. They had the lowest tax rate in the state for like 20 years. No one could understand why. How are you able to fund on 12 cents a property tax? And so city council would ask me, my peers would be asked, why can't you do what they're doing for less? Well, it comes to find out it was last year's budget cycle, they realized we are out of money. We had gone so long to where they had drained the reserve, and they realized we can't even fund next year because you have to cash flow. You don't have your money day one, you have to cash flow. And so they had no money to cash flow. And so they had to cut services. They're doing better now, but the mayor got recalled. The manager was brand new, so he got blamed, but it wasn't him, it was prior to that. And so, but still, it's bad. So again, I say that we don't want to get to the habit of using reserve over and over again. And so, because that can happen. Again, primary reasons there, looking at this, we are showing less in Atmos Gas franchise fee, $130,000. That's a big cut there. Again, I'd probably say less gas being used. We cannot control that. That's something that obviously the users, when they use less, we get less franchise. When they use more, we get more franchise. But historically, the trend is going down each year. So $130,000 lost there. Valuations have gone up, so that's mixing into this whole pool here. Again, we did budget for the 3.5% voter approval rate. That's mixed into this increase here. Again, these all net out, and so that's as you go through this tonight, these are all netting out. You have decreases, you have increases to where I give you the net of all those there. Then EMS revenues up $150,000, and then overall through our non-property tax revenues, I'm talking like sales tax, building inspection fees, other franchise fees. Recreation, the permits we issue, overall, those are up $230,000 for next year is what we're projecting here. So the revenues have been going up, and what that means is we can decrease the property tax by that amount there. And so that's what we've done here. So $230,000 more in those revenues mean a little less property tax we have to do to provide the service. So that's always a good thing there. So our sales tax has been going up. Even despite COVID-19, we're having a good year on COVID. Now the question always is, could it have been better? You never know, because again, we don't know that kind of information, and so. But this year we are up from prior years, which is a blessing, and so for our community, so we can keep the service. We didn't have to cut anything this year, but overall, all those add up to $230,000 added revenue through just doing services. That's great. Then the property tax levy itself, 1920 was $6,925,174. This is the operational portion, not the bond and the deadness. It's the operational portion, the part that goes towards our services every day. 2021, I budgeted $7,460,000. That's that 3.5% growth. I don't have Gene here. I don't remember what 1 cent equals to. I don't have that in my mind just yet. It's $100-some thousand. I can't remember exactly what 1 cent equals to there. So the increase is 534,826, again, because we took a lot of the reserve last year in order to decrease that down. But again, eventually you have to either slash services or go to where you have to go to get the job done. So property tax rate, both operational and maintenance tax rates, as well as debt service tax rates, are decreasing in the proposed 2021 budget. I did read an article from Paris News. We see that 2 of our school districts are also lowering their property tax by, I think, half a penny, I believe, or so. And then the counties lowering their property tax, I think, by a penny or so. We're lowering ours by 4 pennies. And now, obviously, they're all worth different. And so their 1 penny is worth more than our penny. So I don't want to say, like, oh, look at us, we're doing 4 pennies here, and they're not keeping up. But still, 4 of us are lowering our tax rates this year, which is overall good. And now, again, we may collect more levy from that, but we are lowering the tax rate with this here. And so, and again, that's about 3.5 cents lower than last year, about 7 cents lower than the year prior to that. Looking at valuations again versus tax rate again. Again, if you go from right to left, valuations have been going up. You see 3% increase, 3% increase, 4% increase, 5% increase. The appraisal district addresses that. Values go up. We have new construction or property values go up. I can't answer those questions for all that. But our tax rate it went up 10% in 17-18, then went to 0%. So no increase that year. Then down 6% last year, and then down 7% this year. So we've dropped 13% since 2 years ago. They're in our property tax rate with that. General fund expenditure. I'm going to include some graphs here, some little line graphs here, and I show multiple years going on here. So in 1920, we had a budget of $23,595,442. In fiscal year 2020, I budgeted $24,443,660. The increase is $848,218, but again, a big chunk of that was the reserve we used there. So it may look like we're adding $848,000 to the budget, but we're not. If you take that $650 into account, we're only adding $198,000 into the budget because the budget was still there. When you net all the departments out, we've added $198,000 to last year, not $848. And so that's a little misleading there. I apologize for that, but that's when you add the reserve to that, we're actually only adding 198. And that sounds like a big number, but out of $24 million, a budget just for general operation alone, that's not a lot of increase there. But again, that's for the council to decide, and whether that's too much, too little, just right, that's for the council to decide going forward here. Again, other reasons here, use of reserve, COLA, payroll is 67% of the general fund. Again, what we do as a city, we do a lot of labor-intensive jobs, things that do not make money. We have staff that are out there on the roads, out there in the library, police, fire, doing those services that the public expect us to give. And so a big chunk of our budget is payroll, which is pay, benefits, insurance, those pieces there with payroll there. So. Again, a part of the increase there is equipment expenses, and we are showing a lot of equipment we need to update and get on track with, and so I've got that in the budget for particularly in the general fund. I believe mostly all, except for a small handful, are being leased or loans. Kind of that's more of a cost-effective way to get more done in 1 year versus one at a time. And I'm going to actually get to one here later on in our budget. We see in the street department. This last year we bought an asphalt roller. Rufus, is he here right now? Was it a roller or was it a paver or was it a roller? I think, Emma, yes. And so it was a roller this last year. We paid for it outright. That was like $70,000. Now, that's okay, but that $70,000 could have gone towards multiple pieces of equipment, and that way we can keep up to date on several things instead of waiting year to year to year in order to get something else updated, because everything ages in time. As you saw on the list here, I got 1980-something, 1970-something, 1990-something, some early 2000s, and so that's why I do propose lease and loans there in order to get more done. Now, that does cause for some interest payments. I appreciate that, but again, if we want to provide services today, this year, we have to replace things now instead of waiting in turn for multiple years down the road. So then, obviously, a big influence in all of this here was the realignment of the budget. Now, I did not calculate. If I had not realigned the budget, I did not calculate that number. I apologize. I just didn't have time to do all that. It was a significant number. It was in hundreds of thousands of dollars is what we pulled out, and so to be utilized in other places. Hence why you see the COLA and the equipment and those pieces there. Those add up to several $100,000 for those pieces there. A lot of that came from the 3.5% as well as the realignment we did in those budgets there. And then, of course, additional positions for city planner and code enforcement officer. All those things are big primary reasons here, just in a high level here. So now getting to departments one by one. You're the first one. Your department number 11, city council. Last year's budget was $80,000. This proposed one is $114,000. The primary reason is a comparable pay study. We put it here. I could have put it in a city manager. I just put it in a city council here. And that's the primary reason for that increase there is a comparable pay study, which we have prorated out. I have a portion of that under the general fund, a portion under the water and sewer fund, and a portion under the sanitation fund. And I prorated it based off number of employees with that there, so for payroll. Other expenses also include insurance, public notices, utilities, city hall maintenance, those pieces there. Now you'll see in 15-16 you had a big cost there. From the looks of it, I see there was a court case that I think we fought that year, and we also did 2 roofs that year. We did this roof, and I think the city hall annex roof that year. So that's why you see a big number there from 4 or 5 years ago there with that.
Grayson,
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
You're fine. Go ahead.
That thought. Question. One thing I didn't see is, I know you wouldn't have found it in the budget, but the building that we got from the fairground down on Fitzhugh and Clement, 1875 Fitzhugh. Now, we rent that out now.
Correct.
Where would that be in this budget? Because that's $14,000 a year. if that money, where is that at in this budget?
I'd have to ask Gene about that. I apologize. I don't know that. That's going to be in
Because
revenue.
it wasn't in any
It's
past
gonna be- it's
budgets for you to go on a line item.
Yeah, it's going to be in revenue is where it's going to be at.
Yes.
And so it'll be an expenditure, but as to which revenue, I have to dig through the details to see where that particular one is.
And then, find out, I mean, I don't know what we're using the money from. Is it for maintenance of the building or?
That would, more likely, this goes to the general fund. And
Okay.
so the general fund, again, those go to the giant pot.
Oh, yes.
And so I would imagine we use that money to offset property taxes, what we do there. So that's
Okay.
primary use for all of our revenues there. Building inspection fees, franchise fees, sales tax, those kind of leases, those go toward offset property taxes with the primary goal. Now, could there be some, it's hard to track a dollar when it comes in, because when people pay things, it's hard to know this dollar went here, because it's a general fund.
Yes.
That's how we operate. And so I couldn't say that it couldn't be used for some kind of maintenance. It may be doing that. Again, if we do maintenance over there, then in a way it is funding that.
Yes.
But I can't track the dollar that I get paid to that necessarily, if
No,
that
I
makes
just knew it
sense.
would be a new line item this year because it's the first year that it for being in the budget.
Well, no, we're collecting it this year, so the line's in there somewhere. I just need to
Yes.
ask Gene about where that's
Okay,
at.
okay,
So, and I
that's
can, that was the, what's the name?
1875
Yes.
hit you.
Yeah, it's probably, we probably have, again, I apologize, I don't know that detail there. And if Gene was here, he could help me with that, but it's probably in one of our lease lines.
Yeah, 'cause
with
this is
that.
the first- yeah, it
I
might
doubt
be
it
somewhere
has
in
its own dedicated line. Again, that gets back to how many lines do you want to have per thing? Sometimes you have too many lines to where it's just overwhelming versus having one big miscellaneous line. So I'm sure it's probably inside of one revenue lines there.
that's
So we can find out for you and email that to you if you like,
Okay,
so.
that's fine.
Any questions on the city council department? Yes, Councilor, yes, go
Oh,
ahead.
is the training and tuition, is that like for TML conferences?
I would imagine so. It's probably, it's a budgeted number to go towards training to be determined. And so I imagine, the likely one would be TML, most likely. And that's where I recommend the council go to first and foremost. But as other things come up, if we have opportunities to some other, some certified, reliable training source, then the money's there for that purpose as well. And so, but we'd like to have some money for training there for the council and for other staff as well, and their budgets there to go towards training to be determined, usually through TML. Yes,
What's the cost, the total cost of the comparable pay study?
$30,000.
So, okay, so the 22, I don't understand why the 22 is in the city council, or is that?
Well, it could be in city manager fund. I don't, we put it
It's
there.
stuck in the city council fund, but I didn't know.
Yeah, I think, we can put it somewhere else too there, and so it doesn't matter. So we can have to put in city manager, we can probably move there if you so like, and so.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, as long as it's in the general fund, that's the main thing there, so. And,
Who does that study?
We would bid that out, so we procure that. So we would find a qualified firm that we feel would do the job right, and we would procure that out.
So if you estimate it's gonna cost $30,000, why do you have budgeted $22,500?
Again, we prorated it. We put part of it in the general fund, part in the water and sewer fund, and part in the sanitation fund. And so that way, all three funds, since all three have employees, it's only fair that those funds help pay for those portions of that.
Is there a budget item for council, workshop, retreat, that sort of thing?
I don't think let me pull this out. Probably apply to training, perhaps. No, we don't have anything specific towards that. But at the same time, again, if that is a desire of the council, we could always shift funds as the year goes on within your budget. What we try to do within departments, as need arise, again, these are budgets. Again, we can't foresee the future totally 12 months from now. So if one were to come up and we wanted to have a retreat, which involved perhaps a paid consultant, yes, a moderator there, we can try to work that into where perhaps if we do that, we don't do so many trainings or some other places or because part of the thing here too, we also have a building and grounds line. Historically, we spend around $20,000, but you never know. Sometimes we may not need that much money there, and again, sometimes as the need arises, if you need to have a workshop, we'll get it done. We'll find the funds in other places to get, because that's not a high expense item there for that thing, from my experience, and so I think that we can probably make that fit under the budget as we have here.
But there's a big miscellaneous amount too, so it could sure, a little bit of it could come from there.
I have zero budget for miscellaneous. You're probably looking at the long.
Oh, I was looking at the first one, yeah.
Sometimes I have to use a ruler to help
That
me.
means you're more specific than
Yeah.
general.
I try to avoid miscellaneous ones as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
You have to have them in some departments, but sometimes you don't like to have a big one there.
Good.
So, any other questions about the city council department? Janice? Oh, okay, yes. So the revenue line for the event center is 01-8509-00. So I'll.
Okay.
So it's located under that line there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is why I have my staff with me tonight. Any other questions on this department? Number 12 is city manager, mine, 1920, 395, 2021, 388, decrease of $6,000. Obviously, I make a little less than my predecessor did, and so that's the decrease there. Payroll expenses, 92% of this budget here, so that kind of helps you understand. I went ahead and add this line there for all these budgets here. You can kind of get a grasp as to the payroll expense of these lines here, so that as we try to tweak things, it doesn't really have much of an impact in some cases there, but 92% of the budget there is payroll. Other things are communications, car allowance, travel expenses, office supplies, utilities, and so forth. Been a pretty stable department over the years.
I have just a general question
Yes.
about the telephones. I see telephone every department, everywhere, and it's several $1,000s. It seems a lot of money for telephone service. I mean, does that include cell phones, or, I guess it does?
Yes.
Yeah,
You can come up here real quick, if you don't mind, yeah.
okay.
It includes everyone's cell phones, the landline, anything to do with communication.
Okay.
One of the things we do that I've seen in our budgets is we try to show the true cost of a department in their budget, because sometimes I've seen in some cities, they'll put the telecommunications in one budget for everybody. Well, that's not seeing the true cost of a police or a library or a city manager. So we try to splice it out so you can see how much that department costs the city. So. Number 13, City Attorney Department, 1920 was $359, 2021 was $350, a decrease of $8,929. That mostly came about because of realignment of the budgets there. Stephanie and I worked together to look at different lines here. We were able to kind of pull some money out in places. And overall, that's 59% of the budget is payroll. Other expenses include the prosecutor that we just brought on, delinquent tax attorney fees, legal material and book subscriptions, associations, communications, car allowance, travel expenses, office supply, utilities, a lot of the basic office type stuff with that. So. Municipal Court, we do have Judge Hunt with us tonight, Department number 14. 1920 is 234, 2021 was 236, an increase about $1,700. It's kind of de minimis. Just office supplies goes up. There's really nothing to really report on the reason why that went up by $1,700. Just overall, not a big increase there. 90% of their budget is payroll. Again, the municipal court, the judge's office. I believe there are 2 staff there. I believe, Judge. 3 clerks and a bailiff there, so 5 total there, and with the judge. And office supplies, associate judge services in case the judge is out for reason, leave or so forth. We can have an associate judge fill in for him. We have some budgeted there for that, and then, of course, travel expenses as needed there. Again, I'm not hitting everything in the budget there. There's other lines there. A lot of the stuff is pretty normal stuff. Again, if you saw things in any budget that you want to ask about, stop me. I just hit some of the overall
What was
highlights
the
there.
COLA, 2%?
2%, yes. And again, each budget had a realignment. And so last year's budget was not the starting point. You have to go back to where I realigned it. That's the new starting point. There we built it from there. So I don't have those numbers with me, so I couldn't tell you what after the post realignment budget looked like. And so 234, $1,700 is obviously not 2%, but through the realignment of different lines, it netted out to $1,700 there. City Clerk, Department 15, 1920 was $144,000. 2021 is $100,408. Again, this mostly is payroll expenses is what mostly drove that. And again, I didn't go through and give you every single reason because every line, again, nets out to that difference. So I just kind of found what it looked to be the primary reason for an increase or a decrease there. But everything nets out to give you that $1,700 number there. So payroll is 90%. Other expenses include office supplies, communication, travel expenses, training, a lot of the basics there. It's been a pretty steady department across the board for multiple years there. Any questions for Janice or City Clerk or? Accounting and Auditing, Department number 21. 1920 was $451,000. 2021 was $450, so a decrease of $1,100. We had so this is where it nets out. We had an increase in payroll through the COLA and so forth. We also had a decrease in some consultant fees that we're no longer using so much anymore. We also had a decrease in our software expenses. We got some different software coming up this year, a little bit cheaper prices there, and so all that netted out to actually to a decrease of $1,100 for that department there. Again, payroll is 83%. And of course, other expenses there, supplies, postage, insurance, travel expenses, consultants, accounting software. Again, this here is where we show all of our software. This whole booklet here that I gave you in the Exhibit A, Exhibit B, this comes from that software. This is where we account for our claims, that software, budget software. That all is shown in that budget there for that department. Police Department, number 31. 1920 was $6,637,341. 2021 is $6,777,833. Increase of $140,000. Now I want to stop right there. You have to also remember that some of these departments are heavy payroll. I mean, the police has over 70 employees. And so a 2% COLA is a big number. And so while we do see a $140,000 increase, again, a 2% COLA, that will produce a large number there. So the big increases there was because of payroll, increase in some gear. We have some new recruits coming on board. We've had some resignations for various reasons. And so next year we're looking at bringing on some new recruits. Now, when you bring new recruits on, you have to train them, you have to gear them, you have to give them equipment. So some of those expenses come on with new officers that you don't have with experienced or existing officers. Again, the realignment of the budget took place here. There's a lot of change in the police department here where we realign things based off of history. I would say police and EMS were where we were under budgeting based off of what we're actually doing for various reasons here. So we budget this much, we would spend this much, but mostly it's through payroll. I don't see reason to where we were just overspending on stuff. It's just we were not properly budgeting our payroll and overtime lines, particularly in EMS, and I'll get to that in a few lines from here. And of course, an animal control truck. And so this year we're looking at doing an animal control truck to replace the one they have right now. Payroll 81%. Other expenses include training, uniform, expenses, gear, vehicle. Obviously, we're heavy vehicle in police, a lot of fuel, a lot of idling. And so that can have some wear and tear on vehicles. Law enforcement equipment, radios, animal control, the kibbles and bits, that kind of stuff for animals and so forth. We got to feed them. Insurance costs. Again, insurance, just like the telephones, we break out the insurance costs for TML across the departments here. And so you don't see one giant large insurance line under some general fund. You see it broken out by department. Obviously, police, workers' compensation. Obviously, they take on a dangerous job, and so workers' comp rates a little bit higher for police. And we have of course bigger property footprint, liability rates. So we show that here. So
Mr. Path,
yes.
I'm noticing the workers' compensation insurance has gone down in virtually everywhere I've looked. Is there some reason for that?
That it's.
Everyone is down, I mean.
Yeah, which is good, and so
It's
we
good,
like
but
that.
I didn't know if there was a reason for
What
that.
happens is, obviously, it's through our insurance carrier, the whole pool itself has had a better year, and so we get better rates as a pool. And so some years you reap the benefits and get a lower rate. Some years you have a worse experience, a worse mod, and you go up. I actually met with our TML loss risk here about a month or so ago, and actually Stephanie was there with me as well. I can't remember his name right now, but way workers' comp looks is that you look at 3 years in succession, and so it's a moving 3 years. If you have a bad year in some year, they use the other 2 years to help kind of balance that out. But as time goes on, eventually that bad year phases off, and if you've had good years, your rates can plummet. But within the last 3 years, if you had a bad year, it's going to keep impacting you as it averages out with the other rates. And so talking to him, as I recall, we had a bad year here sometime back that fell off. And so now we're getting better because we've had less injuries. We are looking at getting our safety committee back organized again. I'm working with staff on that, and so trying to address safety matters across the board. And because again, less injuries means better rate mod, which means cheaper rates. And so that's a big reason I'd say for that. Then, of course, third-party agreements for software and equipment, and then also we have an annual rotation of 4 new patrol units. Chief, how many units do we have in total for police? Do you comment how many car units?
We have 10 frontline units.
10 frontline units?
Some that we stepped down.
Step down, yeah. So we try to rotate those on an annual basis there because with police cars, they're about a 3-year lifespan. And because a lot of idling, and so they may have low miles, but if you picture an idle vehicle for hours and hours a day, that's worse on the engine than running it. And so a lot of idling, but that's part of the job. And so not a lot of resale. You really can't get a loan for these. I tried in Nebraska City. Again, since they have a 3-year life expectancy, a loan, you're upside down within 3 years trying to rotate that out. And so we buy them outright. And because otherwise you're paying more in interest after 3 years than you are your money behind in that situation with that. And so, but we do that rotation every year to try to stay on top of that. Again, those are their offices. That's what they show up with. And they need those units there. So, any questions for Chief Tuttle or myself?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Were incentives included in for new recruits? I know we had addressed it once before, like if they stay for so long after they finish training, they would have to stay, a couple of years for new recruits?
Basically, for new police officers, if you are
Yeah.
a certified officer, when you go to work for us, we do have an incentive program, and things like a $5,000 sign-on bonus, and it's paid over a period of time
Okay.
as you accrue time in the department.
Thank you, Randy. Anything else in police, or? Number 32 is fire department. 1920 was $4,656,981. 2021 was $4,679,007, an increase of $20,000, which is not a lot for that big of a number. And but again, that's primarily through the realignment of the budget here. Mostly a lot of decreases in this here. There were certain things that we're no longer doing. Example, we used to give the employees an allowance for their gear, but now we have washers and dryers, and so we were able to remove that allowance for gear because they had to take their own gear home and wash it. Now they can do it at the stations there. So a one-time upfront cost is now saving us, I don't remember, $15,000 to $20,000 a year just in that one right there alone. So things like that we're trying to do in order to save some money there. Of course, again, this is also, we have 50 plus employees and firefighters and staff for fire department. So any kind of COLA does give a bigger number there. But again, through all the decreases and increases there, it netted out to just $20,000 for that. A brush truck financed, it's about $120,000 for those. Ours is a 1999 or a 99, thank you, Thomas. And so we have a 1999 needs to be replaced as 20 years old, a brush truck. And so you try to rotate those every 10 years. And so we're 10 years behind on that one. And so it'd be good to get that one replaced for that. And also some gear extractor equipment is also thrown in the budget for this one here. 82% is payroll. Other expenses, of course, training, uniform expenses, gear, vehicle, fuel, equipment, bunker gear. We do an annual rotation of bunker gear and air packs. Those are critical for fighting fires. And so we do try to rotate those. Those do have life expectancies, so we have to keep those moving. Otherwise, you can face a big bill down the road to try to replace all at one time there. So we try to rotate a little every single year, bite it one little bit at a time instead of one big bite down the road in order to replace air packs. Insurance, third-party agreements for equipment, and, of course, fire truck. We are also We are currently financing one of our fire trucks, one of our larger ones there. So you see some $100,000 toward that annual financing in that truck. So fire trucks, they're expensive. And so I've seen some $250,000 for like a ladder truck. And so those things, it's fire department, above all others, is where you want to get into a rotation. Because that's where you can see the big bills for these things. There's a specialized equipment, fire trucks, air packs, gear. These things are very specialized. The market knows that, and so they know that they can charge what they want. And so it's good to try to bid those things out when we do, and also rotate those consistently as best we can. I think we got some work to do in that area that we want to look at going forward. So. Code enforcement, 32-01. 1920 was 478,000. 2021 is 638,000. So an increase of 159. But I'm going to get to that. We have a fourth code enforcement officer there. But the big thing here is it's actually not new money here. We were budgeting 100. We were budgeting the house demo and the lot mowing and the sanitation, which is Department 45. And so it'll be budgeting there the last several years. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been budgeting there. Now, code enforcement, Robert, he's the one that spends that money. And so not sanitation, it's code enforcement does that. And so this year when I got into the budget, I can see some reasoning behind that. Obviously, landfill expenses, those kind of things. Sanitation had the money, I'm sure, at one point. General fund didn't. But this year, sanitation fund, when I got into it starting off, they were upside down. And so I had to do something there to try to help give them some more money so they can operate this upcoming year. So I pulled that money from sanitation, put it in code enforcement where I think it belongs. Again, this is a true cost of code enforcement here. They're the ones that demo houses. They're the ones that actually abate the lots there. And I actually increased it. This year was $60,000 for house demo. It was previously $80,000, but it got cut. I moved to $100,000 because we have a pretty lengthy list of houses to be demolished already right now. I think we're about a year or so behind, not because of staff, but because we're out of money every year. And so I added another $20,000 toward the normal budget on that in order to give us some more houses demo to try to get caught up with that, try to eat away at that list there for this. And another thing too, as we talked to BSC this afternoon, they had an orientation today. I informed them today that I have authorized Robert to start scraping the surfaces with these lots here. And in years past, to save money, we would take the house up and leave the cement foundation. Well, we want to try to sell these properties. They're more marketable if they've got a clean slate. No more foundation, no more steps, those kind of pieces there. So whenever we possibly can, if not always, we're gonna spend the extra money there to actually scrape the foundation off as well, make it more sellable, more marketable, and obviously it's a little more of a lien on the property there. But at the same time, we want to get that property into the hands of someone's going to pay taxes, and so we budgeted some additional money for that as well with this here. And we also have a Bobcat tractor financed through that. Robert told me today that our current Bobcat actually broke down last week. We were doing some demo work with our abatement crew, and all the hydraulics blew up. And so we're going to put it back together again, but it's I don't remember how old it is, Robert. 2008 model there, and so they use it pretty heavily. So it's about time to get that thing flipped around and get a new one for the Bobcat with that. 57% payroll is what this budget has for payroll. And other big expenses are postage for violation notices. By law, we have to send things out, some certified, some in other ways. We have to follow check those boxes there in order to make sure we get our lien in the end. If we don't check the boxes, then we could end up not collecting our lien on that. It get thrown out. So there's a budget for that. Fuel, obviously, a lot of the crews are abating jobs, mowing and so forth, also driving around. And then, of course, demolition expenses, nuisance abatement, and contractors. We try to contract out a lot of our mowing instead of us doing it ourselves. Again, we're trying to reduce all of that. Working with Tracy Pounders, we've done a good job the last several years of getting, as Robert was saying earlier this afternoon, if you were to go to the LCAD, the site there, about 4 or 5 years ago when we first brought Tracy Pounders on, we had about 6 pages of properties that we were trustee of. We're down to 1 now. And so he's done a good job of trying to get properties flipped and into the hands of taxpayers who are going to pay the tax with that, and we don't have to maintain them anymore. So we're trying to wheedle that list down as much as we possibly can, but it's an ongoing fight. As I was telling someone tonight, with code enforcement and other things, is unfortunately that kind of behavior is hard to combat and have it beat. You have to just keep after it. That's hence why we have police, hence we have code enforcement, because this is a nature of living in a city. So. Any questions? Yeah.
Yes, as far as maintaining the lots and all of that. I mean, what do we have budgeted for that? Because, I mean, in my district, we have plenty of abandoned lots that are just overgrown, and, I mean, in order to even get them ready for sale, I mean, it's gonna take some work that, I mean,
Are you talking about just mowing them? or,
just mowing them or whatever we have to do to, like I say, get in the hands of taxpayers that are gonna pay the taxes or even keep them up.
That's a complex answer to that, because one, there's so many of them, we can't mow every lot every week, and so we try to do the best we can to come back to it until we can get it sold. And so we of course, we're also mowing the loop, a big chunk of the loop out there. I know when we added the crepe myrtles out there, the state said, okay, that's on you guys now. So our crew does mow the loop out there, so that takes about a good week or so of our time, every month or so away from that. And so that's something I need to work on in the future. But of course, a lot of our money budgeted is through our payroll, because a lot of it is payroll, and so you see it through the fuel expense, the payroll expense, because it's a lot of it's just labor, and so that's where you see a lot of that budget into that.
No, my question was, as far as, I know Robert contracts some of it out.
Yes.
So what's the allocated amount that he can spend contracting it out, is what I'm asking.
Hey, Robert, you know off the top of your head, you can guess that, but
The new proposed budget, we've got $40,000, just specifically for lot mowing.
Uh-huh.
Then we've also got contract services hiring partners, which is $60,000. This year in particular, we have used a portion of that money also towards contract mowers. Instead of hiring the 10 people, which we can't get right now, that's citywide. We've actually dipped into some of that, and we're paying more contractors to just hit the entire town.
Okay, good job.
so you'll see it's actually broken between two lines there. They have the contract services, it's 358, and we also have the training, no, I'm a different one, I'm sorry. I'm in fire, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong budget. Thank you, Robert. Ignore what I just said there. Help if I went to the right budget. Yes, $60,000 there, it's 356, is where you see that there for a lot of contract mowing there, so. Because we do some mowing ourselves, but we also contract out a portion as well, which again allows us to get more done.
Yes.
Instead of having one crew, you have 2 or 3 or 4 crews running at the same time, because
Oh, I
grass
get-
keeps on mowing. Grass keeps on growing,
Okay, yes, I agree.
so. Any questions about any of the proposed requests here or anything? Or again, I did propose a 4th code enforcement officer. This would allow us to break into 4 quadrants, allowing us to get more done faster. Our crews are out daily trying to get stuff done, but there's also a lot of time in the office spent to where you have to get ready for court cases. You have to do research for notices. You have to get the notices out. You have to then prepare rechecks. A lot of time spent in the office getting that stuff done. So having a 4th person will help spread the load out to where we can get more area. Robert would then be focused more on the vacant building ordinances, as well as just a lot of the troubleshooting, as well as the southwest quarter of the city. And that's kind of our least code enforcement prone quarter is the southwest. And so he would take that on. The other 3 would take on the other 3 quarters. That way Robert can be more of the more tougher cases. I send Robert in a lot of our more need a stronger firm hand with that. Not saying that about the rest of the staff, but Robert, getting the supervisor and also a peace officer, he can get some stuff done. So. Okay. All right. Community Development, Department number 40. This is where you see, so we have the 469 budget for 1920. 2021 was 507, increase of 30,000. Primary is because of city planner. We have the budget in there. So payroll is 55,000. Office expenses, grant match, CDBG. We do try to get some CDBG funding for our community, which we have to fund the match. Sometimes it's 10%, sometimes it's 25%. It just depends on the grant we're going after. And so we usually budget that in here mostly. Excuse me. We also have our continuation of our Historic Preservation Committee survey. I know Sherry's working Sherry's working with HPC on that, so we have that budgeted here in order to continue that into next year. Then we also have our GIS software. That's a really high expense in order to fund that software, to maintain the rights for that. And we did hire a new young man with that. He's doing an outstanding job. Just a lot of great ideas. He's doing a great job of getting things caught up in GIS. Yeah, yes.
Why did the salaries go up so much in this department?
This is the city planner, and so we added the city planner this
Okay,
one here,
his
yes.
salary's in there, okay.
Yes, yes. So the number there is reflecting the city planner there.
And I got to ask the question,
Yes.
do we think we have enough business to keep a city planner busy, a full-time employee, or should we look into a consultant or a part-time consultant or a temporary consultant?
I believe we do. I've asked Carla here to come as well, and so I've seen with our growth, the size of town we have, our future plans and so forth. Of course, we want to do our comp plan every few years in order to stay ahead of that. But I will let Carla speak to it because she's more expert than I am.
Oh, thank you. We have enough work here for our short-term zoning cases alone. You know, we've got 6 cases next month. That will kind of increase and decrease month to month. But the long-range planning of actually implementing what our comprehensive plan includes, we've got a lot of zoning that has never really been pulled forward. We've got a lot of ag zoning that technically should be rezoned to align with the comp plan. So there's a lot of things that could be full-time projects for a full-time planner that we've never been able to actually take on. And so with that, in addition to site plan reviews and development reviews, there's plenty to do. So this
Would this streamline the process too for people trying to change zoning or maybe
yeah, I think that we would have the
construction
opportunity
projects of
to.
any kind? I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
for
I don't know.
example, a planner would be able to initiate a zoning change to make an area comply with or be in conformance with our comprehensive plan, so that when they come in to do what they're wanting to do, they're already through the process. A zoning change would not be necessary. So there are opportunities to fast track the development process. If we get the zoning aligned with the comp plan, then they don't have to go through that zoning change on their own.
A lot of things right now is we are kind of reactionary because we are short-staffed. I mean, Carla and I, we're not trained planners, and staff is not trained planners, and so we do have to do a lot of reactionary things. That's why we have so many zoning cases, but a trained planner can stay on top of things, trends as they're happening. I mean, the economy, the private market, it's changing. So different ideas are out there, and so we need to keep on that. So hopefully having a trained person to guide us through that will, instead of being reactionary, be proactive, to where we can see what is our community wanting to see? What do we want? What kind of growth do we want to have? Where do we want to see growth happen? And how should that look? What kind of ordinances should we propose for that? Is it now time for a comp plan because it's now 10 years old? And then when you get the comp plan done, that's a plan. Ordinances, zoning ordinance, those are the rules you go by, so we need to now make sure those are now in accordance with the plan. A lot of things to stay on top of as time goes on, and so that they become more proactive instead of reactionary.
And a planner keeps mistakes from being made down the road. You wish this building wasn't there, or this property had an ingress and an egress. They're trying to do that.
They're really the first line for when development comes in. They give the first feedback regarding zoning, but not just that, site plan, the upfront regulations, and also kind of the face to receive those development, kind of help them through the process. I do my best, but it's another hat to wear that sometimes I struggle to keep up with all of the things, you know, to the high level of customer care that we could, that if we had a full-time city planner to help them through that process.
So what are the qualifications for a city planner, or the credentials that they have to have, and how would you guys go about searching for one?
We would advertise for either a graduate planner that has a bachelor's degree in urban planning, but there's master's degrees in planning. There's all sorts of, you know, higher level education that you can get to qualify, and we would certainly pursue that. I don't know if there's any in the Paris area or not, quite frankly, and in fact, I'm not sure that there would be any firms that we could do, Mr. Mayor, as far as hiring someone on a part-time basis. I'm not sure that those services are available in town. I'm not aware of any. But as far as a full-time position, it's a college degree. Urban planning is a degree that, you know,
It's a specialized skill set, and so you go to school for this type of thing, and so it's. I mean, I know the MPA route that I took, you can either take one towards administration or towards urban planning, and so it's a skill set that we would be looking for. It's not, you don't just find these individuals. There's not a whole lot of them. So we'll keep your fingers crossed, we'll be able to get one that's good and can stick here with us.
Well, with what you have allocated as far as the increase in salaries, that amount will get you
No,
qualified?
again, this is the net of all the changes, and so,
Yes.
and so what I did for next year, I budgeted for 3/4 a year, because we can start looking October 1st, but you don't need the budgeted money to pay for
For
something
the-
until they
for the
come
year,
on, so.
okay.
So I don't remember exactly what the total pay range was. I don't recall if you remember,
I see a salary
60.
and wage increase of 56, 365, so I'm gonna say it's around 50 probably for a,
yeah, 50 to 60, it sounds about right, yes, and so when we have a full fiscal year, and it'd be in that range
be in
there,
that range.
yes, but we
Okay, that's
budget a
what I was
pro rata portion for that. Plus you have the insurance and so forth that goes with that, and pieces of it too, so. But I do believe we are prepared for that. I do think that we are, thanks, Carla. I do think that we're growing enough, we're big enough, we have enough going on. It'd be nice to have someone there to take the reins, guide us through the process, and also kind of alleviate some load on our current staff. And I think it'd be a good service for our community. I think once we get one on board and get them on board, I think we get them started, I think you'll be pleased with the direction that they can take us, more of an educated direction than what we're able to offer. And so we're doing a good job trying to keep up, but again, we're having to be reactionary. And so it'd be nice if we can be proactive to where the zoning process is a lot more streamlined, and it's in line to where you already meet zoning, so. Any other questions, or? Main Street, 40-01, 1920 was 104,668, 2021 is 108,618, increase of about 3,900. It's really de minimis. It's mostly just adjustment in pay and some small things here and there. There wasn't really a whole lot there that caused that increase. They're just a whole mixture of things together. Payroll is 65% of this budget here. You can see it's been a pretty flat budget across the last 6 years there. Not a lot of changes there. Travel expenses, promotional activity for like festivals, downtown business brochures.
You lost us somewhere.
on page 20, kind of 3/4 of the way down there. Look on the,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. This one in your sheets there, it's actually, it doesn't have its own page.
Oh,
It's
okay.
actually, it follows immediately after number 40 there. So you start on 40 and you work your way down, you're going to see 40-01 once again. Yeah, it starts.
I was in engineering.
You have it?
No, you can go back to community development. Yeah, that was
Community
engineering.
development, page 20.
Page 20? Yeah.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody say 40.
Yes, it starts off right here.
Okay.
That's where it starts off again, right there.
Okay, we got it. Yeah, make sure we keep-
the account number.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, this is 40-01, and the other one's 40-00 for that. So it's, again, this is one of those sub-departments that fall into community development,
Engineering, it went back.
so. And farmer's market applies to this, maintenance downtown applies to this. Sherry Bedford's here tonight in case you have questions for her. She oversees this budget.
What, do we have on Main Street too, on our, and this may be in a different fund, I'm just thinking Main Street, thinking of downtown. The next phase of downtown, have we done anything with that yet, or we're kind of where we're at right now?
No, we've not. Remind me what is the next phase, Carla? Is,
Well, we've got the two-way traffic study is sort of the next phase for downtown. We're going
Yeah.
to submit to TxDOT, but we don't have any consulting funds in there to actually pursue the next step to that. Also, we've got, what was also referred to as phase 2, which would be the outside of the plaza, coming back with that. We don't have any funds available for that there right now. So neither one of it's not in the proposed budget. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I remember we had said that we were gonna do phase 1 and then reconvene on phase 2, I think.
Yeah, right now with phase 2, Carl and I met with TxDOT here last week, and so we got to meet our area engineers. I got to meet them for the first time, and we discussed the next phase being the two-way traffic. My thoughts, first off, is it'd be kind of nice to let this kind of settle down for a while. I mean, we've made changes here to downtown. Sometimes it's good to let it sit before you make more changes. But also, secondly, it takes a while for TxDOT to review these, so we are going to submit it to TxDOT, but they're thinking a year or two just to get comments back to us. So
But we're kind of waiting on them.
we'd be kind of
More or
waiting on
less.
them, yes.
Cool.
Yes. So nothing in the budget for next year. We're just in a waiting game. It's been submitted, or will be submitted, and we'll be waiting on that.
So are we gonna do, I mean, we have anything budgeted now to help with signage downtown? Because there's no direction going to either way. I mean, you can be going in a lane, your lane swerves over like this, and an S, but if you're not there, you're gonna go straight, thinking your lane goes straight, and then it's gonna, I know we had an accident the other day, but can we do anything with the help with the signage to just guide the lanes, how they go?
Well, that's, part of it is, that's what the puppy tracks are there for, is the lines that kind of keep you in your line there. So, but again, part of the whole, as I understand, I wasn't here for this, but the idea behind shifting there is to try to slow traffic down. And so with the shift there, it does cause them to try to slow down a little bit. And so I'm not sure if signage, and I got Ed Wayne here and Carla here, I'm not sure, any ideas about what signage could look like to help try to encourage them, or?
Talk about putting some reflectors down, some of the button reflectors potentially to
I
help
mean,
be more visible through the intersection.
yeah, you know, when you're going in through either one of them, especially if you're going south, right here on First, the road curves like that. Well, the person in this lane goes straight, which they're in this lane. This person on the inside lane goes straight, but they're actually in the right lane, left lane now. They don't know to swerve over. I see it too many times that, I mean, there's no guidance on that.
Are there painted lines on that one just yet?
Yeah, they're painted,
Yeah.
but, I
I
mean,
mean,
you have no,
Part of the issue is traffic law still applies.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to always guide everyone through traffic law, because the white lines, you got to stay within your lane. That's traffic law. And so it's kind of hard to give more signage to get them to follow traffic law.
I mean, it's hard, I mean, if you're going through, I mean, of course, you're right, but, I mean, it's gonna, I mean, people just not knowing that. I mean, they're not seeing it. I mean, because every day that you see someone go straight and then now they're in that lane.
Yeah.
If, I mean, me, I know, so I'm gonna go real slow
Yeah.
to make sure to see what the next person do.
That's something we can look at, and so that's something we can try to work on.
I mean, we discussed it once, but
Thought about putting some signs on
on the top, yes.
signal that might help.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that'll do it, yeah. Just guide the lanes.
Yeah.
Honestly, where drivers are transitioning to the new paper markings and getting used to what the expectations are. They've driven straight through downtown for so long. There's a bit of a re-education, if you will,
Yes.
to try to slow down and look. But if we can get some signs on the mast arm, I think that'll help, and also the reflectors on the pavement. We'll work towards that.
Thank you.
We'll look at that. So it's not really a high budget item, and so, we are a little bit off the agenda. We'll come about the traffic signs there, but prior to there, but we can definitely, we'll look at possible signage for some of that, so.
Mr. Hughes, with the street you're talking about on South on First, there used to be a contradictory sign up there. It said right lane must turn right.
Yeah.
That sign was up there. I complained about that. I don't know who took it down, but it vanished. But it contradicted what happened at the intersection, so you really didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this will be a lot better when it's two-way. When it's, then you won't have somebody parallel to you. You'll be
Yes.
crisscrossing. But until we get it that way, it is an enormous problem.
Yes, and it's going, west, right there at the same intersection, well, before that, on Lamar and West, where it changes over to, Bonham. And like I say, going south right there, and coming north, just at the first one, on this side, at the southeast corner. So those three corners are the problem.
Yeah, we'll keep working with TxDOT on those,
Yeah.
and keep looking at that, so, very good. Any other questions for Main Street Department? Engineering, Department number 41, 1920 was 443,000, 2021 was 413,000, decrease of $30,000. Again, realignment of history here. I think we had a position there that I did cut. You will see in some departments here, a lot, again, historically, we would budget for so many positions, but we would never fill them. And so I went ahead and pulled that out and used it towards what I feel to be the true problem of tackling the pay. And so eventually in time, as we move on in the years ahead of us, we might be able to start filling those positions again. So this is one of those situations there. Payroll 81%, office expenses, communications, cell phones, consultants, a lot of the same stuff for a lot of office related work here. Engineering software for the work that Carla does for the engineering there. So any questions on Department 41? Public Works, now we're heading into MA's departments. Number 42, this is kind of the general Public Works Department. This is not all the individual ones. This is kind of the overall administrative one there, the front office there. $244,000, 1920, 2021 is $223,000, a decrease of $21,000. Big reason because our new Public Works Director is starting the new steps versus our last Public Works Director was higher in the steps. And so that's a big reason why the decrease there for that pay. Payroll 82%, Again, office expenses, car allowance, budget, building maintenance, there's a lot of the general office-related expenses there for that, for this particular one. We'll get into other departments as we go along here. Parks, Recreation, Right-of-Way, Pool, I lumped them all together here, number 43. This also includes 43-01, 02, 03. I put them all together here. 1920 was 1.1 million, 2021 is 1.2 million, increase of $59,000. Again, there was a decrease in payroll here because in this situation, we had a number of vacant spots historically to where I pulled that money out, applied it towards COLA. We also moved the contract mowing and spraying. That was actually in Department 89 before, but Parks used it. Again, I want to show the true cost of a department in their budget here. So by request of Bill Lowranger, our Parks Superintendent, I moved that over to this here. It's a net zero impact to the general fund because it's all within the general fund, but I show it in the Parks budget here because that's who's spending it. And so we put it there. So that's a big reason why you see an increase of their budget as it nets out. That was close to $100,000 between those items there. A decrease in pool repair. We did have this year, we had budgeted to do some pool repair because the bid prices came back really high and because of COVID and other reasons, we did not do that pool repair project. I did not budget it in for this upcoming year. MA, Bill, and I need to get together on the future pool projects for there to kind of strategize what we want to do next. Those are some high dollar expenses for that, so we need to strategize those. We also budgeted for a mini dump truck, skid steer, and mini excavator for finance options there. So all those things netted out to the $59,000 difference there. Payroll is 45%, and of course you see fuel, vehicle expenses, mower rotation. We do try to rotate a mower every year because they do a lot of mowing, a lot of right-of-way, a lot of our drainage areas. Park utilities, of course, that's a big piece. A lot of our utilities to the parks comes to this department here. A lot of your water you see in the parks to water the yards, that gets budgeted through here. That's a big line item. We're also doing our I think we're in year 2, if I can see Bill here, for Trail to Paris, for the asphalt. Is that year 2 we're looking at doing? Year 2. Yeah, so we have about a 7-year program. I'm not sure why my monitor keeps going off here. We have a 7-year program to where we're trying to repay the Trail to Paris through town. And so we're looking at doing year 2 of that. So that's budgeted in here. We also have a lot of your recreational programming, the softball, the pool trainings and so forth. Of course, tools and equipment, and then pool chemicals. That's a big item you see in there. Chemicals are expensive, and so we did do some work this year. We converted to a gas, is that? Liquid. We converted to liquid this year. We were doing tablets, I think, before. Am I totally off? The tablets, yeah. Oh, very good. So we went from a tablet to a liquid injection, which is more cost efficient. It's also safer. Chlorine is very dangerous. You have to have proper certification, and the gas from that can be dangerous. So through the liquid portion, it kind of takes our hands off it, and so it's done through the injections. You don't have to sit there and handle the chlorine like you would with tablets, and so, yeah. Any questions on the Parks, Recreation, Right-of-Way, and Pool departments?
In parks, I see with the mowing, you contract, you got it budgeted for $95,000. Is that more than one company, or?
Yes, and so,
Currently, it's just one company.
oh, okay.
One company that's contracting right now. They have about 14 properties.
Okay. Yes, I had that wrong, yes. So I think we bid that out, I assume, so.
Yeah, we bid it out. We have a 1-year contract for 4 1-year options. Right now, we're fixing to go into year 2 with this contractor.
And so, yeah, so they did the mowing for us, because with all of our parks, we can't do it all ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we have a contractor to do about 14 of the parks there. Right.
About 14 out of the 46 properties that we maintain.
Any other questions about that, or? Thank you, Bill. Streets, Highways, Department number 46. 1920 was 1.678 million. 2021 is 1.519 million, a decrease of $158,000. Again, payroll was a big one here, and so again, streets is another one. We have a lot of vacant spots there, so I captured that. So that's a big player into the realignment of the budget there. We did increase a temporary worker budget there. We are historically spending a lot more than we're budgeting temporary workers because we have vacant spots. We have to still get our jobs done, so we were doing a lot of vacant workers. So I increased that budget there. And again, like I said earlier, we had budgeted this year for an asphalt roller. We need to do that next year, and so that also impacted the budget, bringing that budget down because we've already bought the roller, and then we have the finance for the wheeled excavator and the wheel and the motor grader finance to that. So all net out to the $158,000 decrease in that budget there. 4%.
We're cutting from the budget these employees that have not been found. Are those spaces still there, or are those spaces, are they done away with?
I've left some, and so again, some departments, we had 5, 6 vacancies, so I left a couple there, because again, we're trying to hire positions. We want to use full-time positions we hire instead of temporary workers all the time. And so I left some, but again, historically, since we're never filling them all, I subtracted 2, 3, whatever the number
I was just wondering
is.
if they were, if by this action, they were no longer vacant
No,
or
the
or available.
long-time goal will be to eventually fill them all again. And so, but again, I think the problem is because our pay is low in a lot of these departments here, we're never going to get to full staff until we get our pay where I think it needs to be at. So in long-term, I hope we can then fill the positions up again. But for now, since we're never doing it, we just got 2, 3 positions funded for next year, vacant spots funded there for that.
So for those, we're still looking for people then.
Yes, yeah, we're still looking for people, yes. And so, and if we can catch someone again and try to hire someone, if we have one more beyond that, we'll definitely try to do that. Again, historically, we're nowhere near, I think, getting that accomplished because I think our pay where it's at, so. Yeah, this is a big project to start working on the payroll part. It's a big project. It's going to take multi-years to do, so. A lot of molding.
I have a question
Yes.
about storm sewers. You have $20,000 budgeted for storm sewers. Is that, it's kind of, oh gosh, I think that's going to be under, I don't know, building maintenance, maintenance
Trash.
buildings? It's a couple up from maintenance buildings. You see it? Storm
Yes, I
sewers?
got it.
Okay, what is that? Is that to
406.
clean out?
Rufus.
Cleaning that out? What does that do
Come on up
for
here real
storm
quick,
sewers, sir?
Yeah, can you speak into the microphone? I've been texted that, and whenever the city staff talk, let's take that portable microphone in front of them so it'll be on the recorder.
Or just come up here if you could. Just come up
Or
here.
come up there, yeah.
Is to repair our storm drains.
Could you speak
Speak
in
into
the
the
microphone,
microphone.
please, sir?
Is to repair our storm drains.
Oh, it's just to repair them, not
Yes,
to,
and
not to
put new
mow
ones-
them and clean them out?
No, no.
Okay, very good.
Okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right,
sir.
thank you.
Rufus. Any more questions for Rufus, or?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Rufus. And again, we have a big part of our budget there is also a lot of street and alley repairs. That's a very large line. It's some $500,000 there. That goes to a lot of our miscellaneous work towards that. Work there for asphalt, concrete, chip seal, a lot of that comes out of that budget there, so.
Yeah, okay, but then we do have a question for Rufus.
Yes, Rufus.
I mean, you and I spoke, and have you met with Grayson as far as the annual road repair that you say we used to do back in the day of funding that and putting that in the budget? Have
That's
you-
something Grayson's gonna have to work on. We're
Yes, okay.
working on, yeah.
Yeah,
Are
it's-
y'all working on it?
It's not in this year's budget here,
Okay.
but Rufus and Inmay and I met last week or so, and we talked about this, and we need to develop costs for that.
Yeah.
And looking at linear square feet and so forth, the square foot cost, and so Rufus and Inmay, we're going to work on that for this next year's budget, for not this coming year, but the year after that.
Yeah, for that.
Because we need a strategy part, I'm sure we'll bring Carla involved at some point, because we're talking about like a mill and overlay type project.
Yeah.
So is that right, Rufus?
That's right.
Yeah, so we're looking at, years ago, we would mill and overlay, which is definitely the preferred option. But now, because of budgets in the years past, we've not done mill and overlays. And so we've done chip seals, which is a good thing. Again, water is the enemy when it comes to roads. You gotta seal those cracks. Chip seals get that done. But mill and overlay is a better product, lasts longer, but we have to start budgeting for that. And it'll cost more, so we gotta get creative with that, so.
Okay, just asking. Because that's our main, I mean, that's one of the main complaints we get about streets and bad roads and stuff, so that's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things a lot of my constituents have expressed is that they want their curbs and gutters fixed and so forth. In fact, I believe a city crew was on 36 Southeast last month, and they've really complimented Rufus's crew and so forth. But I see a big decrease, almost 160,000 on streets. Am I
Yeah,
looking at that correctly at the bottom of page 26?
Yes, overall, again, between the payroll alignment, the decrease of the asphalt roller, taking that out of the budget because we bought one this year, and then all of the things netted out to 160 difference there. And so, but the actual work done did not decrease.
Okay.
And so I didn't take money away from the actual work part. I just took money away from those vacant spots and then the equipment that we didn't need to buy because we've already bought it. And so that's the decrease for that.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, streets is not one you want to cut. And so I don't want to cut any of my departments, and if we're providing the service here, but you don't want to cut street because that is definitely one of the ones I hear the most complaints about is our streets and roads. So we want to keep that one, yes. Yeah, yes.
So do we have a focus on, you know, where when the big downpours come, you know, really quick and on Lamar, the flooding, you know, happens? Do we have a focus in the budget on trying to do something to negate that or to
For our
address
drainage,
that? Yes,
not
yes.
so much, not yet. It's one thing that Carla and I have talked about, and we do need to get a drainage plan. And so, Carla, if you can speak on that real quick here.
No, I'm a little talker, I'll get to the microphone. One of the things that is in the comp plan, I'm sorry, I always talk about the comp plan, but it was the need for a stormwater fee, or stormwater management fee, which would actually give us a revenue, if you will, a funding source for comprehensive drainage improvements. Right now, we just maintain, and so if there's one that's broken, we replace it. But unless we have a street project like on 17th or Church Street, we don't really have an opportunity to go in and make wholesale drainage improvements. And so over time, that's something that we really want to bring to the council. We have not, it's been a bad year. It's not a good time. Last year, we had the property tax increase. This year, we've had COVID and lots of other things. It's not been the appropriate time, but we do hope to bring that likely next year, where we look at a stormwater management plan and an opportunity to, as development comes in and they have a lot more drainage runoff, that's a fee that we can bring in to actually upsize the system all the way down to the creek and be able to pay for those improvements. Does that kind of make sense?
And I learned from Bill that I think we have over 130 miles of drainage. Is that about right, Bill? And so there's a lot of drainage to maintain and keep up with. It's a lot of things. That's not even really enough. And we do need some more better storm drain systems. And I know it's one thing I saw when I came down here was our storm drain system, a lot of roads don't have inlets. And as that's one thing as we're doing projects, I know we did like 17th Street and Church, we were trying to add inlets, get water off the roads. And so that's a project that we need to work on as years go by. And so, but not a lot of money budgeted for improvements this budget here, just mostly repairs and replacements. It's, again, because our budget, we've been operating for so long, we're trying to keep up. We're trying to reactionary, and so as best we can. But we do need to improve to go to the next step, so at some point.
I have a question about the stormwater management fee. How do you go about charging that? Where does that come from?
I don't know enough about it yet, so I turn to Carla here.
There's different ways to do it. Similar cities to our size have done it based on impervious improvements to the area. So if you have a vacant lot, you're not really increasing any runoff to the streets, so you're not paying the fee. Or you could add it to your water bill and say it's $1 a month or whatever the appropriate amount is. But the minute you go to build a house, then now you got your rooftop, you've got your paving for the driveway, so you're adding to the amount of water that goes into the public storm drain. So you may add that $1 fee. Everybody that has a house in Paris may pay 50 cents. We have to figure out what the appropriate rate is.
Okay.
The larger developments where you've got large parking lots and really big additions to our stormwater, they're going to pay a higher amount, and it's typically based on the impervious area of the development.
So they just pay a fee? Is there a thought about having a fee and a area, like a water retaining pond?
Yeah, we'll
or
still
something?
keep the detention pond requirements. We currently have that, so large-scale developments do have to consider, the drainage increase that their development results in, and so that's not going to change. But this would be a way. What it does, it allows us to get upfront money to set aside for a whole-scale project for downstream improvements, because all of these developments do affect the total drainage across the city. And so that's the goal. We want to come up with something that's fair and appropriate for Paris. And I think there's several cities that are our size that have a program already and would like to tailor it after that. But we haven't really developed the program yet, so I hate to say this is what we would do. There's multiple ways that we could handle it, and I look forward to working through that with you, hopefully sooner than later.
Thank you.
Good. Traffic and Public Lighting, Department number 48. 1920 was $516,000. 2021 is $497,000 is what we propose. Decrease of $19,000. Again, this is through payroll realignment. Again, some positions that I extracted there for overall payroll. And also, we have a pickup truck being financed to this department here. Again, all those things netted out to the $19,000 decrease there. Payroll is 10% of this budget here. The big reason you see a big budget here is we pay all of our street lighting from this budget here. So all of our street lights here, if I'm correct with that, Ed Wayne, I think that's right, yes. And so a lot of our street lighting that you see all across town comes through this budget here. A lot of our electrical fees here. That's some $300,000, I think, for that piece in order to keep our streets lit at night. Then, of course, a lot of expense for traffic marking, signage, and those pieces there. Those are your big expenditures in the traffic and public lighting department there.
Why do you have food-humans? Feed non-humans food?
Well, we do have some animals in the pound we feed.
Right.
And so, yeah, so there is some of that. And so
Under the traffic department?
well, yes, in some departments there, we do have, once in a while, at some form of time or whatever, we have a small amount for just some cookies or whatever, I don't know. And I asked Gene why the food-humans, and that's just an accounting thing.
Oh,
And
okay,
I don't,
'cause, I mean,
yeah.
Wanted that
if
too,
it
but I
struck
was
you odd, I don't feel bad about it
Yeah,
striking me odd either.
it is kind of strange to see food-humans, but it's,
It's not that way anywhere else. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
it's
always
all the way
a
through
food
there.
line
It's true.
item, but it
Yeah.
doesn't say just humans only, so.
yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
all the way through
It's
there.
on several budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on several budgets there, so they're usually very small amounts there. I think it's just usually just sometimes we have to feed the inmates, we have in the police, and sometimes we have just cookies or whatever for trainings or whatever, that kind of stuff, so not a lot there. Garage, Department number 49, 1920 was $357,000, 2021 is $360,000, increase of $2,800. Again, this is also, again, the net. We have some shop tool upgrades. I mean, our garage does almost all of our maintenance for all of our equipment, vehicles, patrol units, fire trucks, ambulances, backhoes. They do most all of it themselves. We do have to farm some things out that specialize, but we do a lot of it in-house. It's faster that way. You don't have to get behind other people, so we get it done right away. And but with that, you have to have good tools. And as vehicles get more complicated, you have to kind of upgrade your tools, your software. And so we budget about $7,000 to go towards tool upgrades, so we can keep servicing our equipment. Payroll is 86%. Again, overall, besides payroll, you have tools, equipment, office expenses, and utilities. And so it's, but again, primarily labor-based. EMS, Department number 54. This is one here that I believe has been under budgeted for quite some time. 1920 was 2.6 million. 2021 is I budget for 3 million, increase of 434,000. The big thing here is you look at historical overtime expenses. Our budget was way low on that, and so I did bring up the budget to where it actually needed to be at. Again, you look at the overall net of all the funds. There were some that cut, and then there's some that added, and so this is one to where we added budget there. But again, I want the department to show the true cost of doing the service. We have a three shift crew. A, B, and C. They rotate every day, A shift, B shift, C shift, 24 hours. And then within those shifts, you have 3 crews across the 3 departments, plus a transfer team daily. And so those crews rotate amongst themselves. But since you have 3 shifts, you have 7 days a week, 40 hours a week. So that's 40 hours is our overtime number. So 24 plus 24 is 48. Then one of those is going to have another 24, 72 hours. So that's where the overtime comes in with that. So one crew a week is going to have 72 hours, which 40 is regular. Another 32 is overtime. That's where it adds up there to do a 24-hour shift for an EMS crew. Yes.
Mr. Path, maybe Mr. Klinkerman can explain this, but the salary and wages are almost, the overtime is only a little bit less than the complete salary, and the question I have is, obviously, Kent, why is there so much overtime, and are you unable to hire people, or explain how this works?
Well, there's obviously the built-in overtime that he was describing. We have minimum staffing. Anytime we have anybody call in sick, or we do training, or on a deployment, that automatically drives it over to overtime hours. The biggest driver we have right now is that we have experienced a 93% increase in out-of-town trips. When we got 2 freestanding ERs, and with PRMC doing recruiting out of the Oklahoma area, we went from 4 to 500 out-of-town trips a year to last year we did 970. Right now, we have 2 ambulances, one's in Fort Worth and one's in Tyler for trips from Quality. So when we added Quality and you added Signature, and you have the patients that are being transported away from this county, that's what's driving our biggest driver of that time.
I guess my question is, shouldn't we be hiring more people and arranging our schedule so we're not depending on a massive amount of overtime?
I mean, when we went to the 40-hour pay in over 40, we dropped our pay. If you go back to that year, you find that there was not a net increase in the salary cost because we dropped the hourly rate. And then by the calculation of the time and a half, it came out to the same annual salary for everybody. Now, at that point in time, that was that first year we did that. That's 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe longer, I can't remember. And then the EMS department's been here now 40 years, and this year is the final year we actually got steps to keep our experienced people. We can't attract people right now. We had an opening. We had another paramedic go to Hopkins County. We've got one that went to Bonham, and we only had 1 applicant. And they know we're a busy service. They know that what we pay, and even though the city has other benefits, retirement things, you just can't attract people. And so that's why I use part-timers or PRNs. We try to utilize them as much as possible of being on call for these out-of-town trips and taking those trips. But even then, we have difficulty attracting people. Right now, my cost for a PRN paramedic is $20 an hour, and I just have a few that I can count on. Most of them are EMT basics. We basically recruit them, train them, EMT basics, get a few of those to go to paramedic school, get one occasional one to pass the test, and then they're gone somewhere else. So, I mean, like I said, there's a number of factors that drive that number.
Is your part-time wages, is that included in this overtime item, or is it some other item?
Well, anybody that's not salaried is in, I don't know exactly where they put the number. Sometimes the number for, I would say anything under 40 is going into salary. And so if I have someone called in and they're on the part-time list, I would say that until their number hits 40 for the week, I would imagine it goes into the salary, but I don't know for sure that's how it goes.
I was just asking which line on the budget that the part-time people fall under.
Well, they're not budgeted positions necessarily.
It'd be under salary lines, where it should.
Yeah,
It would be under salaries and wages, so that would
Yes.
not be into overtime. The
Right.
overtime would only be our guys that are
Well, anytime
employees.
like I said, we have a day crew, and we schedule PRN people to work on that crew. We have 3 full-time equivalents approved in the budget, but I only have 2 people who are actually hired. I split the hours between all the other ones, try to keep them coming to us, because if I fill that 3rd position, all those hours go to that person, and then all the other ones can't share the hours. And so that's the reason why,
Okay.
it's just difficult right now to find anybody.
And I think that's the bottom line, but I still, to see overtime almost the same as the general salary wages seems incredible to me.
The plan was to add a person per year, and y'all started proving that a number of years back, so that next year we would have a 4th crew. And so, to take up some of those hours and move it into salary. But there's always going to be things that we don't have any control over at all when it comes to call volume and where the facilities are sending patients. They tell us, I would rather not have all these trips, but, that's just the way it's working out. I mean, that's the industry, that's the business. People want to go to where the facilities can find them. We had patients going to Lufkin and Shreveport this past week because these COVID patients, you can't take them anywhere. So, external factors drive our numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
It sounds like getting a fourth crew or fourth shift is something that has been discussed in the past. I've not had a chance to look into that so much, but it's something that we can be working on looking at, because yes, if you're able to get an added crew, that does eat away the overtime. And so it does sort of net, but at the same time, you add a crew, you bring on all the cost of a full-time crew. And so it's, my last community, I had a 4-shift crew, and so is what I did. Instead of 3 shifts, we had 4 shifts, and so it's something we can look at.
The 4-shift is basically, instead of a 24/48, you have a 24/72. But you're going to have to do something about the pay. Because if you turn around and reduce their hours by that 4th shift, and you drop their pay from, say, $40,000 a year to $25,000 a year, you'll have nobody working here.
Yeah.
You won't even attract EMT basics.
That's the balance we have to try to manage there. Because right now, they're making so much right now through overtime, but if we cut their pay, they may go somewhere else, because they're used to that standard of living.
But you got to remember, we cut their hourly rate when we went to the 40-hour week. The net ended up being at the end of the year. The annual amount of they got paid did not change. It just changed categories within the budget. It went from salary to overtime, and that's the reason why. But they didn't make any more money.
I appreciate it.
I had a question about deployment.
Yes, sir.
Where would
Yes, ma'am.
EMT be deployed to?
We have, historically, the state has deployed us for hurricanes and things like that. This past year, we've had deployments going on for all the testing that the state has been doing. We had one paramedic that's been deployed, I think, 4 times now. And he basically would go and coordinate with the military units that was setting up these testing centers all over East and South Texas, and he would be gone. And that's a good point about what's happening. We have to front the costs, and eventually we're going to get some money back. I mean, we've had, I think we've been deployed 4 times, and then, we've got grants that we've applied to offset the cost of the COVID and things in the CARES Act, but we're having to front all that money, and eventually we'll get it back sometime.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Did you say you have almost 1,000 transfers this year?
No, I said we had in 2019, we had 970 transports of patients away from Lamar County, outside the boundaries. We ran almost 9,000 calls.
So that's almost 3 a day.
The problem, if I could schedule it 3 a day, it would be fantastic. The problem is when we get 7 called in on a Friday or a Saturday, and I've got 3 out-of-town trucks. It's one of the microphones. Either that microphone or, no.
It might be, no, Mary doesn't have a microphone.
Makes a difference.
Okay. Well, your men and women do a good job.
Well, they really try hard, and like I said, paramedics, the amount of training that you have to go through just to become a paramedic, then you got to do the practice, and for your good, we like to see, them stay, because obviously they provide better care the more they practice their medicine. But if we could figure out a way where I could schedule the trips to 2 a day, that'd be super fantastic. But I have a primary call crew, and then we ask for people to volunteer to be on second call, and that's what happened today. We had one that left to go to Tyler, and then they called in immediately. 20 minutes later, another one to go to Medical Center Fort Worth at rush hour. So that's going to be a fun trip over there.
Our expenses, our revenue to expenses, where are we at on that? Are we
What, I didn't understand you, I'm sorry.
revenue on the EMS revenue
Well,
in relation to expenses? How far
It's-
off are we?
I don't know that we are.
Because the primary revenue is EMS revenue and then also the county contribution, right?
Yes. We typically, like, we're sitting right now at 2.4 million in patient collections right now, and then we have a contract for 366,000. So that's an annualized number. Obviously, they pay it once a month. And so, if you just stopped where we are right now and they paid the full amount, we'd be sitting at
It's about 2.8 million roughly.
But
That's
we
what the
should-
revenue is.
we still have 50 more days, and our amount per month has been, say it's averaging 200,000. So,
So let's look at 18, 19 numbers, because we have all those.
uh-huh.
Our actual expenditures were 3.2, a little over 3.2 million. What was our revenue for EMS in 18, 19?
Well, I think that you're going to also remember that we built a station, and all that entire $500,000 was in our budget, one-time type thing. We basically cover ourselves dollar for dollar. If you pull out the $500,000 that's over 3 years, I think we're real close to being almost dollar for
It's
dollar.
about 2.9 million roughly.
We had
So
two-
you take 500 out of that, so
Well,
we
we
were
had
200 positive?
We had $200,000. Oh, let's go backwards here. 17, 18, no, 18, 19, 200,000 and 17, 18, and 100 and something thousand in 16, 17. It was $500,000 that was carried together to build that station. And if you subtract out 200,000 for I think the year, based on my memory, we're within, I didn't hear your numbers, but
I think it was, we were at 3.2 in 18, 19. What I'm trying to figure out is, are we still profitable?
well,
We're right on the border. I would say we're probably subsidizing a little bit. And a lot of the impact with that is, as Ken and I talked about here a while back, and as I see in my experience, my last community having EMS, is when you try to look at rates, it costs to have someone standing there. It costs to have an ambulance there, to have a crew there, and it's just like fire and police. You pay for 24 hours to be on call, ready to go. So, but unlike the other departments, this one actually does make a lot of money, and so which is actually a great positive. And but we look at our rates. Your primary funders are private insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. I think those are the three biggies right there. Medicare and Medicaid only pay so much. We can raise our rates to this much, but they only pay this much, and they are how much of they are our calls? Would you say Medicare and Medicaid are?
I mean,
And you know at the top of your head what they kind of are for our calls, or
as far as the blend, as far as payer mix,
yeah.
I mean, I imagine it falls within, the credit mix. When you turn around and you look at, like, right now, today, I ran a report, and then 56.8% of our revenues is Medicare. And we're getting paid for things that happened in 2019, 2018, because we fight and we appeal and we refile and argue and things like that. We've got a billing staff that does that. You then turn around and talk about Medicaid, and it's roughly just 11%. We've got double the indigent population, and so getting blood out of a turnip, I mean, they don't pay anything either. Patient payments, constitute, 10%, whereas primary insurance is about 22%. So the thing about rates, I mean, if you want to talk about rates, there are limits set on reimbursement by all the programs, whether it's workers' comp, Medicare, Medicaid, VA, TRICARE, railroad, anything you want to talk about, they have limits. I could charge $1 million a call, and they're going to allow $250 and pay 80% of the $250. So I always look at that as far as trying to keep our rates slightly ahead of the max allowable by Medicare, since it's the pay leader right now. And at the same time, that doesn't, the person who doesn't have insurance, they don't get a $1,200 bill for an ambulance call. They get one that's more appropriate for what the care was delivered. It at least gives them a chance to think they might could pay their bill off. That's the psychology of collections. You give them something that's attainable. So that's what we try to do. We try to maximize our revenues from all the different pay sources without killing the person who does not have insurance, or the claim gets denied by insurance. We have too much of that. Insurance companies look for any excuse to not pay a bill. It can be you didn't put an X in block 22C, and they'll fight you on it, and then try to drive you past the deadlines that you have. Medicaid's 95 days. Other programs are 95 days. Some are a year. But you've got to fight them every single day to get every single dollar.
Yeah, so it is slightly subsidized, but through our department, we actually have on staff people who this is their job, is to fight for the revenue every day. And then, of course, they bring in $2.7 million to the city, so they're definitely well worth what they do. And so, yeah, it's we're in that fine balance there. Do we have just enough transfers, just enough calls to equal our cost roughly? Now, some years it's a little ahead, some years a little behind, but again, it depends on whether there's a mass breakout of health or something like that. And so where people, they don't need to go to the hospital anymore, versus, COVID-19 hits, lots of calls, and so it's driven by need.
I think if you looked at a 5-year smoothing average or something like, or a 3-year smoothing average, and you knock out those one-time costs, I think that we're still sitting on dollar for dollar.
Any more questions for Kent or EMS or? It is one thing, Mayor, that I think that Ken and I will talk about in the future about the shifts and looking at that and what's appropriate, what to try to drive down the overtime, and we'll be working on that going forward, so.
Because I did have, spoke with a couple of EMS workers, and that was the number one complaint, that the pay was so low that the only way they could survive is to work all the overtime. So they were running themselves in the ground, just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's one thing that we'll look at in our payroll pay study as well. So, yeah. Thanks, Kent. Airport, number 60, oh, I lost my page again. There it is. Number 61, $148,000 budget, 1920, 2021 is 257, so 109 increase, but we have a grant match as part of that, and we also have some CRF program funding coming to them. They have a $69,000 CRF, we have our CRF funding of $1.7 million. Airports across state also got CRF funding for them, so that's going to come to us next year. So we show that in the budget, $69,000 there that's going to be grant funded to us that we're going to spend there. So it's not, we're not adding tax money to that for that $69,000 there. We're going to get money that we're going to spend out of that budget there. So that's kind of a misleading look there. You think we're going to add a bunch of tax, we're not. Payroll is non-existent. We contracted out insurance, utilities, airport management contract, the FBO, and then CDBG, CRF grant funding comes in that fund there. So the Paris Band, the mayor can speak this one better than I can. And so this is $23,050, stays the same. No payroll, no change there. We have one line for contracted services. I didn't look to see what that is. I think there's a lot of sheet music and other pieces with that. I didn't look to see what that was. I apologize. I didn't have time to do that, but it stayed the same. So. Library, number 64. 1920 was 713, 539. 2021 is 727, 331. Different increase of $13,000 there. Again, payroll. We do a COLA there. It has a little bit of an impact. We had some realignment in there. Their budget was already pretty on target. They were one of the ones that actually was on trend across the board, and that I saw. So I didn't have to do a lot of realignment in that one. But again, with the 2% COLA there, it had a little bit of an increase in their budget there. 72% payroll. Books, media, library materials, software, electronic software, online libraries, databases, building maintenance. We have an historic building there, an older building. I don't know, is it historic, Priscilla? Is it listed historically? 31, yeah. Okay, so it's an older building there, and so a lot of maintenance costs to go with that to help try to keep that building in usable shape. So,
How many full-time employees is that?
10.5. I have 10 full-time and 1 part-time, so it's 10.5 FTE.
So 10,
Thank you.
yeah, 10.5, yep. Okay. Now, the general expense IT, this is actually one that next year I'll be working with Gene to probably split out. I think IT is now is good enough to have its own department number, but for right now it is lumped together. We have our general expenditures and we have IT. $2.3 million in 1920. 2021 is $1.7 million, decrease of $581,000. Again, we had some COVID expenses shown in the budget here. I think we amended the budget sometime this year to add that in there, so that's obviously not going to, hopefully not be happening next year, all those expenses. And we also moved the mowing and spraying that I discussed earlier to parks. That's now in Parks Department there. So all that nets out to a decrease there. Payroll's 5%. That's the IT employees there. We have 2 IT gentlemen that work there. Other expenditures through the general expense, we have, this is where we pay out our hotel occupation tax to the Visitor Convention Center. We pay that out of this fund, some $500,000 there. So we collect the revenue, we pay it out through this department. Lamar County Appraisal District, we do fund them through this. Our various nonprofits. I do want to speak on that point right there. I know we do fund some nonprofits there, and so I'm going to be working on a policy next year that can help kind of guide me as to what is appropriate for public purpose. I've had some requests this year that I've had to deny versus deadlines and so forth, but I'd like to develop for myself a policy that I can use to one, what is a public purpose and they can do better than us, and two, also deadlines, but also three, what was it here? There it went. I had some thoughts there about what I want to do with that. So, and man, I also want to talk about also a cap. We want to fund. What this is there are some nonprofits in the community that do things that generally a city would kind of do, but they can do it better for less money. And so instead of us trying to reinvent the wheel, let's work with them, partner with them. A lot of police-related things, child abuse stuff, women's centers, things like that we deal with a lot on our jobs. So they can do things better than we can, and so. Might as well we work with them to use the funding, but at the same time, I can't give away all my money. So I like to look at maybe having a cap on that, so that I know, okay, once we hit this cap, I'm sorry, I can't give out any more money. And so, because we got to still get our streets, parks, library, police, those things done. So, Paris Metro is also funded through that. The health department, computer repairs, rotation. We rotate our computers. We rotate a portion of our computers every single year. Try to keep up with that. Try to stay ahead of the scammers and the upgrades. Communication upgrades, we do a lot of our equipment upgrades through our servers are shown through there. We have 2 servers, primary servers, a primary server across the street, and then a secondary server at another location. So we have those. Online data storage, email servers, and then we also have a server replacement project next year. We're working with Dell to replace our server, and it is outdated. And as you know, with cyber terrorism and cyber threats, we got to have updated equipment there for all of our electronic communications with that. So looking at replacing that's long overdue. Any questions with this?
I do.
Yes.
How many employees are in this department?
There's 2 IT. So just 2 IT people. Again, this general expense is 2 things. I think next year I want to propose I want to move IT out to its own department number and just have a general expense there. General expense doesn't have any employees. That's just our general.
8901 is IT department.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So 8901 is IT. 8900 is general expense, and so.
Some of my salaries in it.
Okay, and some of Ken, because Ken is also our IT director, so it's probably 2.5 out of 8901 is our technology.
Well, I'm just looking at the salary and wages for 8901, and it says $212,400 for 2 people's salary?
Well, it's 2.5, and so part of Kent's is also out of that.
Oh, for
And,
2.5 people, we're paying $212,000.
I have to look into
Okay.
what those are, but yeah, it should be 2.5, which is our 2 full-time IT individuals, and then we also have part of Kent as IT director out of that as well, because he's IT director and EMS director, so it just adds up to that amount there. And I think we also have a part-time person too, don't we? Yes, so there is a part-time person that we have. He's actually one of our paramedics, and so he does part-time job for us. So it's actually 3.5, or I guess a full 3, I'd say. And so you have the 2 halves together, so 3 positions. Okay. Now we're moving into water and sewer fund. That was the general fund, $24 million general fund. That went through all the departments there. Now we're moving on to Fund 10, Water and Sewer Fund. The revenue there is 1920 is $15,250,000. 2021 is $15,269,000. This is water and sewer combined. Increase of $18,000. Sewer revenue is down. Water revenue is up. The net increase is $18,000 there for that. What did I write there? City attempts to budget conservatively as water and sewer revenue is strictly dependent on usage there. So. Water and Sewer Fund as a whole, we will get into the departments next, but this is as a whole here for all the departments under Water and Sewer. 1920 is 15,111,000. 2021 is 50,269,000. Increase is 157,789. Again, the primary reasons there are for the COLA. We have 25% of the budget is payroll. We also have a lot of equipment replacement, bulldozers, backhoes, line replacements, some valves, some pumps. Those things are involved in that, and repairs and improvements. And again, we have the realignment a part of this as well. Realignment of the budgets also produce some savings that then applied netted out with these expenditures there. So now we will get into the departments one by one here. Warehouse, number 80. Budget was 1920 was 121,000. 2021 is 118,000, a decrease of $3,000. It's just, again, a realignment, de minimis. It just ended up working out the way, ended up saving some money in that department. 71% is payroll. Other expenses include office expenses, building repairs, concrete loading, unloading pad. That's on that one right there. We are looking to budget to the warehouse has a loading location. We want to concrete that because as we get our forklift out there, when it's wet, soft, it tears things up. So we do want to put a little concrete pad out there so we're not tearing up that area, and so we can get our inventory in and out. Water and sewer billing, number 81. This is actually across the street here. 1920 is 2.4 million. 2021 is 2.446 million, increase of $28,000. The drive increases there are credit card expenses. If people use more credit cards, we have a fee to pay on that. Every time you swipe your credit card, you actually pay the third-party administrator who oversees the credit card transactions. You have to pay them their fee. We also have some billing software improvements over there for our billing. Decreases, this year, we bought a vehicle last year. We don't need to buy a vehicle this year. Payroll is 15%. Now, the big expenses here, of course, we have a lot of postage and billing. This is where we pay our bills. This is where we send our bills out, a lot of postage expenses. We have a water and sewer rate consultant here every year. You met him here a few weeks ago. They analyze our water and sewer rates, and so that's paid out of this budget here. We also, a big chunk here is, the primary chunk here is we pay our utility franchise administrative fee from this to the general fund. It's very common that when you have a utility there, to help offset property taxes, you do charge yourself a franchise fee to help lower property taxes, but through your revenue rates. And so that's shown through this department here. That's over $1 million right there, which is a big part of this budget here. And so this is where we show our transfer, our franchise fee from water and sewer to the general fund. Of course, our billing software expenses, and then we also have a meter replacement rotation every year. We budget about $100,000 every year to rotate meters. We're trying to get the radio reads. That's more efficient. We can get done faster. Instead of having to go to every box, every lid, and pop the lid and look at the meter and read it, you can drive by, it radio reads to the car. It's a lot faster process, but we're doing it a little at a time. I think and Tammy, I'm not sure, is it 5 years? About a 5-year process here. We buy meters 1 year, and then we replace them the next year. Then buy, because we budget $100,000 each year, so about a 5-year overall rotation with that between all of them. So about 5 to 10 years with that process there of buying, installing, like that. So that's shown through this budget here. Water production, number 82. This is our water plant up there by Lake Crook. 1920 was 3.166 million. 2021 is 2.873 million, decrease of $292,000. We had excellent chemical bids this year. The prices came down as you opened those bids here. I'm sorry, you reviewed those bids here recently. We opened them prior to that. You saw we actually were able to decrease our overall budget for chemicals this year because of good prices. Also, a big thing too is our electrical rates have gone down. A lot of pumps, a lot of motors. That's what fuels the water coming through town. You have to pump it. You have to transport it, and so we received better rates here recently. So through our process there, we were able to lower our utility rates drastically to produce a lot of savings in that budget to help fund other things there. And I think that's on a 3. How long is it? I think it's on a contract, isn't it? Or there you are. Yep.
Electrical?
Yes. Or is that just year to year, or is that?
Gene would better answer that question than I would.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that we have like rates locked in for so many years. I don't remember that. I'd have to check with Gene on that, but I think that's the case there. So we've had some good rates the last couple of years there, which produced some big savings from where we're at a few years prior to that. Also, a decrease in planned repairs, and we also have an increase in capital projects we have that replace roof and painting of some facilities. The Pat Mays pumps, again, Pat Mays is where we have our 4 primary pumps. That's where our water comes from, so we got to make sure those pumps are rehabbed, working. We have, we just did Pat Mays pump number 1 this last council meeting. We're going to do, I think, number 4. I think it's the next one. Yeah, so we're working number 4 this next year to help rehab and replace those, so we can maintain. We have a water coming to town, and then also we have some pneumatic valves as part of our CIPs as well in that department there. Again, the net of all those was a decrease of about $300,000 there. Payroll expenses 32%. Other expenses, of course, office expenses, chemicals, insurance, electricity, Pat Mays pump station maintenance, equipment repairs, and then our SCADA system as well. Those are kind of your biggies in that budget there. Any question for Doug or Danny about the water production? Water distribution, this is back to Public Works, CIP number 83. 1920 was 1.669 million. 2021 is 1.995 million, so an increase of 326. The primary reasons are we're looking at buying a backhoe, looking at buying a bulldozer, looking at buying a truck. Now these ones I'm looking at buying them outright. We have the money in the budget, we have the revenue there. Instead of having multi-year buy them, no more interest, we got them, and then it's a done deal this year. Next year, we have some money we can go towards some other purpose next year. And so I did propose buying them outright in this budget here because we had the revenue to do that. Again, if I can buy outright, I will, but when I need to lease and loan, we'll do that instead. And so we also have a work truck in that as well. And then, of course, the realignment process, another department had a lot of vacant spots that we're actually capturing to help fund some of the net here. And then I've also increased the line replacement budget here. Looking historically, this department here, they're the ones out there in the streets replacing lines. So there are years where we exceeded our budget there. We want to keep improving our infrastructure. We want to keep getting that done. So I added some money to that budget there to allow them to be able to do more with the funding there to get more lines replaced and repairs done. So because without the distribution lines, there is no water utility. Payroll is 26%. Other expenses are equipment expenses, tools, fuel, repairs, electric utilities is our pumps that we have in town. Temporary workers, we do have, again, since we have so many vacancies through full-time, we do have to hire a lot of temp workers to help get the job done. Then we also have our service line replacement and repair program as well throughout town. Okay. Sewer maintenance, CIP, Department number 85 and 85-01. 1920 is 868, 2021 is 962, an increase of 93,000. Again, it's like the last one. We're looking at buying a Vactron, which is a piece of equipment that's used to vacuum the tubes and clean them out, so we can get rid of clogs, get rid of junk, and that way things can flow. And you want sewer to flow, and you don't want it to back up. And so that's what the Vactron helps with, that to get things sucked out and down on the tubes. I also have a mini excavator. Sometimes we have to kind of squeeze into tight areas behind through fences, through gates, in order to do some work in backyards. So some of our lines are in backyards. So in order to get to them, we have to get the proper excavator, and our current excavator is old and falling apart. Then a work truck as well. And of course, a decrease in payroll through realignment. Again, I captured some positions there that we can use for COLA. We had some unfilled positions for years going by. And again, just like water, I also increased their sewer line replacement. Just like water lines, we want to keep our sewer lines replaced program current as well. Keep on replacing, adding, extending, those kind of things there. So I increased the budget there, just give them some more funding to work with to replace lines as time goes on. And I guess, again, your normal high expenditures are equipment, tools, repairs, fuel, workers, and service line improvements, repairs. That's the big chunk of this budget here. Yes?
I have a question. I did not hear the delineation between account 8500 and
Yes.
8506.
Yes, one is sewer maintenance, one is CIP. I did lump them together.
Okay.
CIP, that's primarily new installation, new stuff. Sewer maintenance,
CIP stand for?
that's a capital improvement.
Okay. That's what I
program,
thought.
capital
That's what
improvement
I thought.
program. So Inmate, that's actually was Inmate's last job before becoming director. He was a CIP superintendent. And so their role is to build all brand new. And like we had in Sherman Street and other projects there, we do it, if we do it in-house, we do that. And so, we repair, we extend lines or we add lines or we replace new lines ourselves. Then Danny's crew, he does a lot of the repairs, the patches, the valves, those kind of things there. So that's the delineation between those two for both water and sewer. So, yep. Wastewater treatment, this is our facility up north, department number 86. 1920 is 2.56 million. 2021 is 2.58 million, increase of $20,000. Again, the primary reasons netting out was a decrease in payroll because of realignment. Again, capturing positions, increase in chemical prices. Again, realignment. Looking at the budget, we were spending more than we were budgeting there, so I did increase the budget to give a more accurate budget for that because prices have been higher than we've been budgeting for that. A decrease in electric utility. Once again, just like the water production facility, we've had great rates for electrical rates for our pumps and so forth. So I was able to lower that budget there to match more current history for that department. Again, capturing money to go towards other things. Then I've also budgeted about $407,000 for Garver USA engineering. Again, this is to help kind of bridge ourselves while we're working through trying to wait to find out if we get the loan from TWDB, the water board. We want to keep the work going, so I budgeted just shy of $500,000 to help keep them going, keep them moving, so we can keep that project on track and moving along. And so hopefully, if things work out, we'll have some excess money there. And again, looking long-term, since that's already factored into the budget there, we can use this to help us kind of factor in our rate adjustments there. So if we've got some money already in the budget there, we might be able to capture some of that to impact the future rates adjustment we have to talk about there. So that's a plus with that right there. Then, of course, we have 43% payroll, equipment, tools, chemicals, TCQ permitting, sludge removal. We do have those water basins north of town in Stillhouse. We have the flow equalization basin there. We have some repairs to be done up there. We need to dredge out our basins once in a while. That's coming up here pretty soon. I think we're going to dredge out some this upcoming fiscal year. And you don't want those to fill in, else you don't have capacity there. And that's kind of an overflow when our wastewater treatment facility is backed up. And so we need that to be dredged out. And then, of course, Garver USA Engineering is a big part of that budget there. Lift station number 87, 1920 is $454,000, 2021 is $444, decrease of $10,000. Again, electrical prices are down. Cleaning of flow equalization basin, that's one of our CIPs. One of our added projects. Decrease in machinery and capital outlay, and then we also have a work truck going there. All that nets out to $10,000 decrease. Payroll is 42%. We have several guys working that full time, maintain our. And Doug, how many lift stations do we have again in town?
15 now.
15 lift stations, and so and just do you know lift stations? Sewer is mostly gravity flow, but once in a while you have to pump sewer uphill. That's what a lift station does. It literally lifts the sewer up to the next gravity flow point. So you want to make sure those things are working, and because otherwise, when those pumps stop working, it backs up downhill from where it's being fed from. So that's what they do. 15 lift stations across town. So.
And are those checked daily?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. I see them
Yes.
from my house. They're
Yes.
working hard.
Yes. Yeah.
You want those checked daily.
And are they also on a SCADA system as well, or?
it's connected to the SCADA system, the computer system as well, for monitoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's unscathed, but at the same time, you want to put eyes on it too. Because sometimes it's something like that, you don't want that to be reading a false reading. And so we do check those daily, so. And of course, FEB improvements, flow equalization based improvements, electric utility is a big part of this budget here, and then also pumps and motors there. Was each station has 2 or 3 or 4 pumps, and usually grinding pumps, and it's a little more expensive. So. Now we're moving on to our now that was water and sewer fund, that was Department 10. Now we're moving on to our final fund, landfill and sanitation fund revenue. 1920 was 1.18 million. 2021 is 1.16 million, a decrease of 22,000. our revenue has just decreased, and so it's just looking at our revenue last year. We've had a decrease in collections there for whatever reasons, and so we are showing a little bit of a decrease in projected revenue. Again, you always want to budget conservatively on revenue, and so you don't want to budget too much and balance that just to come in less than that, or else you've overspent. So the landfill sanitation department is 44 and I think 45. I think the two of them are together like that. I didn't put that on my slide here, but I combined the two of them together. The two landfill sanitation departments combined for $1.187 million. 2021 is $1.165 million, so a decrease of $21,000 there. Again, overall realignment of the budget for payroll. This department has a lot of positions that are open still. This is our trash service. We have a very hard time keeping full-time staff there. Ed Wayne, how many positions do we have normally in trash and sanitation? Is it like 10? 11, and I've seen historically we have maybe 4 or 5 filled at any one time, so we have to keep putting temporary workers nonstop there. So with that one, so again, I captured that and applied it towards the overall COLA there with that. I also, in this situation here, because this part was so upside down to begin with, I did move the house demolition and the lot mowing out of this one and put it into code enforcement, which is where it belongs. Again, that's a code enforcement deal, not a sanitation one. I would imagine in years past, because of tight budgets, money was here and not in general funds, so they probably moved it over there. But to me, I'd rather have it where it belongs. And so that was a decrease in this budget here, which frees some money up. And with that, we were able to get a work truck, boom truck, but also you see there it's Stillhouse landfill work. We have a landfill that we own. It's closed. It's a long story behind this. I'm starting to learn about it. 1990s is when we closed it, but the TCEQ monitors it for like a 30-year monitoring period, and we're getting near the end of that. But we have a lot of work to be done out there. We have to put a clay cap on it in order to properly close it out. So working with MA. And hopefully our new bulldozer that we're looking to get next year, we'll be doing some dirt work on that in order to try to help close that project out, hopefully once and for all. And so I did budget some money into that one. I don't know if that's enough money. I put like $90,000. I don't know if that's enough, but I budgeted the excess I have after everything else towards that to help start eating at that elephant with that one. So that's the landfill project we're working on and for that. So payroll is 36%. Other expenses include equipment, tools, fuel, repairs, landfill fees. Obviously, when we collect trash, we have to pay the landfill to take the trash, and so that's a very high expense there, and so that's built into our rates for that. We also have drop-off. People drop trash off at our facility. We have to then obviously pay to dump that at the landfill. And then we also have our Stillhouse landfill closure expenses, which is a sizable amount there. That again, I don't know the true cost of that just yet. I put a number there. I basically balanced the budget out with that one being my balancer. And so we'll be working on trying to close that project over the next couple of years.
So when we close out the Stillhouse landfill, we won't have this anymore. We won't have this expenditure or
Yeah, correct.
anything?
There'll be money to go towards something else or whatever you want to go towards within the sanitation fund, obviously. But yes, we'll be able to it'd be money available to go somewhere else in that fund.
Okay.
Yes. So hopefully next year is it, and then we'll have money available for the prior year. Well, that is all the funds, all the departments. And real quickly, our timeline. I do know some things here I think are wrong, but the primary deadline here is by our charter, August 27th, we have to have a draft budget approved for publication. Now, from there, we have public hearings we have to do, but the city council will need to bless a budget this coming Monday and at the next meeting so that we can then publish that and start the final process of getting public hearings, notices, those kind of things out here. But by our charter, we have, I'm not sure what today is, but we have till the 27th to get that done. So I would recommend, I encourage you to either give direction tonight or Monday so that we can get the budget off to the next steps of publication and notices. So I think that was all my slides there. But any questions? I mean, again, we have the staff here. Anything that you want to talk about or?
I had one back to the IT situation.
Yes.
How should we not look into getting a dedicated IT department? I mean, we've got we've got highly trained paramedics that are manning our IT department.
We have two that are part-time with that, and so, yeah, so we have two that are dedicated IT individuals, Michael and Clark, and then we have Kent, and we have another gentleman who does part-time stuff. It's kind of fill-in type stuff, but no, I agree. As we progress here, I would like to, for one thing, separate them out, and secondly, I guess look at what we can do with that department here. But it's right now it works because Kent is skilled in both areas, so he's actually saving us money, and by covering two hats. And but in time, through retirements and so forth, we'll be needing to look at that.
And I saw in the budget also the PEG channel, the PEG fee. We're still collecting that, correct?
We are, unfortunately. Suddenlink is not easy to get a hold of. They don't answer their phones. At least we don't have the right number to call, I guess. And but as we have found out recently through some court case and stuff, the district court, there's some argument about whether that money can be used in other things. And so I know Stephanie reached out to some other attorneys that she has connected to, and some of the fear is we may cut that PEG fee, but they're not going to stop charging it. And so that's how it works, and so we have to think that through, and that's on my long-term to-do list to get that thing figured out.
Okay.
And so,
All right.
Well, I think it's a good budget. I wish we could give our staff 3% this year, and then in the future, 2% every year, because the other cities that are counties that are drawing our employees away because of pay and benefits are going to keep giving COLAs as well. So I don't see how, without some big jumps, we're going to even approach a median salary. I wish we could do it, but
it'll have to be phased in over time. That's part of my overall plan, is to start phasing in over a matter of years. And again, you have to acclimate, because when you look at these studies, these pays, what is fair for the employees, what's fair for the taxpayers, and the ratepayers as well. And so, I mean, we want to try to find the fair point. I mean, treat the employees right without overcharging the rate or taxpayers as well. So we need to have a consultant there to kind of, what is that end result there? What is that goal that we can start working towards? And so it's a process there. But yes, that's something we need to start working towards. My opinion is we have to start working towards over the next few years.
our TMRS contribution for our retirees, what number is that right now?
We're on the 6% category. You can either 5%, 6%, or 12%, 5, 6, or 7, and we are in the middle one at 6%.
7% 2 to 1 is
Yeah.
really what will give them a stable retirement.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen, this is the first year since I've been on the council that we haven't had our current retirees come and beg us for a COLA. And I think it's because that contribution is low.
Yeah, and I don't know how that all works either, but obviously as my employees, I'd love to ask for the 7%. But again, we have to look at the overall budget and work our way towards that. But so that's one thing I'd like to look at some point going forward. But again, what's good for the employees and for the ratepayers and taxpayers, and how do we acclimate over time? But yeah, I would like to look at that. And so that's one thing I will be looking at.
Next year.
Yeah, next year, yes, yes.
I just want to thank all the departments for coming out and assisting and explaining the budget and your part in it, especially for somebody like me. Y'all made it elementary, so I appreciate that, and helping the city manager out. Thank you.
And I'd like to say I think this is the clearest presentation we've had since I've been on the council of the budget, and I think the council has been able to understand the budget much better than in previous years. So appreciate the work you've done, Mr. Path, and the department heads too. I know y'all were working with him. So.
They did all the heavy lifting, and I just finessed it. So.
Mary Madewell has heard more budgets than all of us, and she says it's a great one, so.
Okay, well, I guess we'll be looking to approve this August 24th, so it's kind of speak now if you have any changes you want or if everybody's pretty satisfied with the budget, then we'll move on and probably give our approval on August 24th.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And another 2-hour-plus meeting is now over. Motion for adjournment.
Second.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate y'all being here tonight. Thank you.